5 Live Formula One.
The sun has set, but the Lusail International Circuit shines, basking in the floodlights that surround it. We're just outside the capital of Doha. Qatar hosts the penultimate race of the season. The top 3 in the Drivers' Championship line up in the first 3 spots on the grid. 1 looking to keep his title bid alive, 1 with it all to lose, and 1 with absolutely everything to gain. The championship could be won tonight by Lando Norris, but 57 laps of racing stand in his way. The stage is set then for the Qatar Grand Prix.
I remember when I lost my mind.
Lando Norris and Piastri make slight contact coming through turn 3.
There's something so pleasant about that place.
Hey, that's not fair. I'm sorry, that's not fair.
Even your emotions had an echo. So much space.
And there's going to be contact between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris goes spinning round as well. There's a wheel off in the background. Big damage for the 2 McLarens.
You know, I've never been in this situation before, but I'm excited. I think it's exciting for everyone.
Lando Norris wins the Mexico City Grand Prix.
Wonderful car. Thanks for the hard work. Keep it up. We need to keep it up.
It has been superb for Lando Norris, who wins the Sao Paulo Grand Prix and extends his lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship.
I think you crazy.
Max Verstappen wins the Las Vegas Grand Prix and keeps himself in this title fight, and with an emphatic win takes victory by over 20 seconds.
Both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have been disqualified from the Grand Prix.
Piastri fights back in this championship and takes the sprint win here in Qatar. That is crucial in keeping his title hopes alive. It's Piastri on pole for the Qatar Grand Prix. What a season it has been so far as we arrive at the penultimate race of the season. Welcome to live and uninterrupted coverage across the next couple of hours of the Qatar Grand Prix with myself, Harry Benjamin, up in commentary, patrolling the grid, pit lane and paddock, wherever it may take her for this evening. As tensions rise, we can say hello to Jenny Gao.
Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon. Lando Norris is just in front of me. He's just come out of the car, which is wheeled onto the front row of the grid. He takes his drinks bottle, goes under it a little bit of a rope, and he shimmies down the grid to probably have a little bit of a comfort break. Actually, he's talking to his race engineer, Will Joseph, a man you might hear over the radio in the course of this 57-lap race. And if I go forwards and to my left just a little bit, facing down the grid, 371 metres, and here is Oscar Piastri's car, the number 81 Papaya McLaren. They're just shining it a little bit. That's not just for aesthetics, but it's also to make it super slick and very aero efficient. He's going to need all the luck, all the help he can going down to that first turn to try and keep pole position and keep this battle going until Abu Dhabi next weekend.
Certainly will. Thanks, Jenny. Feel free to butt in any time as the grid gets busier and busier. I'm up in commentary. Alongside me is the former McLaren mechanic Mark Priestley. We'll also be joined by the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. I mean, you can just hear the music blasting in the background as Fernando Alonso gets ready alongside his Aston Martin. But really, Mark, the focus is on the top 3 on the grid. It's Piastri on pole, Lando Norris alongside, Max Verstappen in 3rd. But for Oscar Piastri, it's so far been his weekend.
It's been nothing short of perfect for him this weekend, really. He has put it on pole for the sprint. He then went ahead and won the sprint, and he's now on pole for the Grand Prix. It's exactly what he needed to do. I mean, you could easily argue he should have been doing this for the last 5 or 6 rounds when he's been in a bit of a poor run of form. That's what's swung the title into the favour at the moment of Lando Norris' teammate. But here we are in Qatar, and he's done everything he can do so far. He's got one job left, and that is to get off the line well, get through turn 1, control this race and win it.
Let's head back down to Jenny.
Yes, I've got Novak Djokovic with me, a man used to pressure, 24 Grand Slam wins. Just budging past Gordon Ramsay.
Congratulations.
Good to see you.
Likewise. Family good?
Family is great.
Very special lady, this lady.
Yes.
Thank you, Gordon.
Very best. She works the hardest.
Yes.
So nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Best wishes. Take care now.
We'll catch up with you later, don't worry. I'll do Novak first. They're all queuing up, it's lovely. Novak, how are you finding F1?
Put a photo together here.
Oh, they're doing a photo now, sorry. We can move, it's fine, the security guards just bobbing on. Right, well, third time lucky. Novak, how do you find the pressure of F1?
I mean, it's Kalispera. I mean, it's incredible event, honestly. It's my first time on the grid, so I'm trying to soak it all in. It's what a weekend to be a Formula One fan.
Does it feel a bit like a Grand Slam and ahead of that?
Yeah, it does feel. I mean, I think I see all these guys are, laser focused, so I don't want to disturb them too much. So it's a big race especially for three guys.
And what do you think is going to happen? How much of an F1 fan are you?
Well, I think the unpredictability is something that everybody is excited about, and me too. I think obviously Lando is leading it, and I hope for him he can win it. But the other Oscar obviously and Max are right there, so it's gonna be fun to watch.
Well, have fun, enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Jenny Gow speaking to Novak Djokovic and a little bit to Gordon Ramsay as well. The best thing about that is, well, if you're listening, of course you won't see it, but on the TV pictures, it was all captured on camera as well, so that was excellent. Let's just bring you up to speed then with the permutations and the title as it stands. Lando Norris has a lead of 22 points over Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen sits third, 25 points adrift. If Lando Norris is champion this evening, it'll be because he has taken the race victory, or if he outscores Piastri by 4 points and doesn't lose any points to Max Verstappen. Verstappen has to finish ahead of Lando Norris in the points to stay in the fight at the very least. It's going to be tense no matter what, Mark, because we have three drivers all fighting for the same thing but in very different positions, and for Lando Norris in second, he has the most to lose. You mentioned how tricky that turn one can be.
Yeah, he's got the most to lose. That will obviously be on his mind. He's also got, on the flip side of that, the comfort of not needing to win it, not needing to win this Grand Prix. If he finished third here and then finished third again next weekend in Abu Dhabi, he still becomes champion. So he's got a little bit of comfort. The downside of all of that is he wants to get it done. He's a racing driver. He won't want this to roll on for another week. Who knows what will happen in Abu Dhabi? I'm sure he'll have a car capable of winning, but what if he gets a puncture? What if something happens that's beyond his control? He wants to get this wrapped up here, so he's got to get a good start. He's on the dirtiest side of the racetrack, slight disadvantage as the lights go out, but it's going to be very, very close. And the biggest part of all of this is he knows the guy behind him, Max Verstappen. Well, this is a must-win race really for him. If Max Verstappen doesn't finish ahead of Lando Norris, his championship's done.
What is the mindset going to be like for those two drivers? We will discuss that and more, but I tell you what, why don't we hear from both McLaren drivers speaking a little earlier to Ariana Bravo and Stephanie Saad.
Oscar, a pole position and a fantastic weekend so far. The championship battle rumbles on. How do you feel for the race ahead, especially when there is so much on the line today?
I feel good. I mean, it's been a good weekend so far, and obviously starting from pole's the best place to be. So, yeah, hopefully we can have a good night. It's an interesting race with the tyre limits, so let's see what happens.
You've said that you had the most fun you've had in a while in the car this weekend. It really appears that it's been clicking for you. How optimistic are you that you can continue this championship battle with your teammate into Abu Dhabi?
I mean, relatively optimistic. I think starting from pole, gives me the best chance of that, and just trying to get a good start is going to be important. So if I can do that, then I feel like my chances are probably pretty good. But yeah, there's a lot to happen tonight.
Thank you, Oscar.
Hello, Lando, leader of the championship. Do you see the crowd? Oh my God, everyone is cheering. First, what do you tell them?
What do I say to them?
Yes.
Enjoy the race tonight. Thanks everyone for coming out here. It's nice to see everyone. So I've always enjoyed it here. There's always been some good races, and hopefully we can put on a good show for everyone.
How's the team spirit? How's your spirit going into the race tonight?
Oh good, yeah, pretty excited to get going. It's always just a cool event here. I like night races. Night races are always more fun. And it's 2 races to go, so it's getting exciting for everyone. But it's normal stuff. Head down and keep focused.
Both McLaren drivers speaking a little earlier and sounding fairly relaxed, but the tension will be building within themselves and the team, of course. But I suppose, Mark, there's so many things that also are out of their control this evening over the course of 57 laps. One thing that we've been talking about all weekend long, and if you are just joining us, it's worth very much knowing that, well, we've got a mandatory 2 pit stop race coming up at the very least. Can you explain to us a bit more about why that is?
Yeah, it's all about this particular circuit and how sort of punishing it is on the tyres. The wear rate is quite high on the tyres, so they wear down quite heavily. They also have been subjected in the past to cuts and to damage on things like the curbs. The gravel here is actually a sort of sharp gravel. It's a slightly weird thing, but it's like I've got it at home, right? And I know when I go out in my back garden in bare feet in the summer, it hurts, right? It's that gravel, not the soft rounded stuff. And it can cut into the tyres when they're hot and sticky, particularly when they're worn down. As a result of that, for a safety precaution, they've introduced a 25 lap limit on any set of tyres during this Grand Prix.
More on that in a moment. Back to Jenny.
Zak Brown, CEO of McLaren. 10th time, Zak, or are you feeling very chilled?
I'm chilled.
Oh, you're always so relaxed.
Yeah, no. It's nothing I can do now other than watch. So I'm excited, and let's see what happens.
I read a quote that you said about Max being like a villain, just having one final move, like Colombo coming around the corner. One more thing. How are you going to defend against him today?
We just got to try and beat him. We got great race cars, great racing driver. So is he, and his car's very good, and the Mercedes are very quick. So I think anyone in the top 5 can win tonight.
Oh my God, make it even more challenging for yourself. Lap 1, turn 1, is that going to be where the race is starting and finishing maybe?
You can run side by side here for a couple corners, so I think it's beyond corner 1. I think it's the first lap. It's going to be pretty spectacular.
Okay, well, be on the edge of our seats. Thanks, Zak.
Thank you.
Speaking to the CEO of McLaren, Zak Brown there, Jenny, down on the grid. Right, so we have this 25 lap limit then imposed by Pirelli, so that will lead to at least 2 mandatory pit stops, so we'll be keeping an eye on all of that as it unfolds. Zak Brown was saying there that, well, any one of the top 5 could possibly win this race. That includes Max Verstappen, who sits behind both McLarens in 3rd, and he's surely, Mark, the most dangerous because he has nothing to lose.
Yeah, which I'm excited for that, right? Because he can get his elbows out, particularly into turn 1. You just heard Zak Brown talking about the opening lap being crucial, and that's because track position is really valuable here. It's quite a difficult circuit to overtake on, not impossible, but tricky. So the best opportunity for making up positions is right at the start. Max is going to go through here like a bowling ball because he has to, as we said, he's got to get in front of Lando. We think the McLaren is better on general pace, not by much, but just generally better. So his best chance, as we just said, is to get there at first into turn 1. So if you're Lando, you are going to have your mirrors full of that Red Bull and be very aware of it. He's got to be looking in front, all around him, particularly what's coming up from behind.
Verstappen led from the start here back in 2023, and last year, having lost pole after a one-place grid penalty, started 2nd but took the lead from George Russell, who then started on pole this time a year ago and ran off into the distance initially. So what could happen in the next 16, 17 minutes or so when we get lights out? We can actually hear from Max Verstappen. He spoke to Jenny Gao about how he will approach that turn 1.
We know that the start can be quite important, so we'll of course also try to have a good start, but at the same time you never know what happens in a race. We have a 2-stop, and also some things are not in your control, right? There might be some crazy things that also happen behind you, so you just need to keep everything open.
Qualifying P3 at the beginning of this weekend, it might not have seemed possible, but you managed to do it again. So is it going to be skill, luck, a mistake from someone else? What's going to give you that win?
Yeah, I think on pure pace will be a bit difficult, so we do then rely, I guess, on other factors. So we'll see. I mean, a lot always happens or can happen in a race, or a race start or whatever, so just need to wait and see tomorrow.
With the mandatory 2 stops, it's already kind of a pre-described race. Does that take away some of it for you, or do you think there's still possibilities out there to be had and an interesting race to be raced?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, because you can pit 1 lap and then there can be a safety car the next lap. and that's then not great for you. So, I mean, people always act like it's super straightforward, but I don't think it always is. Or, some crazy things can happen. So, let's see tomorrow.
Max Verstappen then, let's see indeed if he does finish behind Norris, he'll get eliminated from the title fight. So a big lap 1 needed from Max Verstappen. He's also actually had to change some engine parts, hasn't he? Changed his engine. So doesn't incur any penalties though, Mark.
No, he's effectively taken one out of the pool of power units that they have, so no penalty, but a slight concern or a slight worry. We don't know the full details of why that's had to happen, but you've got to assume they found some issue or some signs of wear or something that they're a little bit concerned enough about to change the engine. So that's in the back of their mind, I guess, but they will have done it thinking that it will give them the ability to push hard throughout this race. Max just mentioned there the possibility of a safety car. It's quite a high probability of a safety car here because this circuit bites you, and we've seen all weekend drivers making mistakes, so that's another element in this mix.
Back down to Jenny.
Yes, I'm here with team principal of Red Bull, Laurent Mekies. We're just going to move out from the back of Max Verstappen's car. How are you feeling ahead of this race, Laurent?
Look, it's been a fairly difficult weekend. We have been struggling to match ultimate pace from McLaren, but after many efforts with everybody in the team, we have managed to be just behind them today. So let's see if we can stay with them in the race and take any opportunity that will come our way.
We know Max is so hungry for this 5th world title. Will he go all out at the start of this race? Does he have to go all in at the start of this race?
I think you have to take some risk at the start. It's the way it is. It's very difficult to pass here. We probably don't have a pace advantage here, so of course you will have to take risk at the start. I think that's an obvious one, yeah.
And I've just looked at the engine. You've changed it for one that's already in cycle. What was the reason for that? Did you find something?
Yeah, there was a couple of parameters we are not completely happy with, so we have switched back to another previously used engine.
Not a problem.
Sorry? No problem. No.
All right, good luck.
Thank you.
While Jenny was speaking there, magnificent drone show overhead, lighting up the night sky, taking the form of the Losail International Circuit. Just over 5.4 kilometres, 3.3 miles in length, 16 turns, 6 that go to the left and 10 that go to the right. Let's bring in the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson for a moment. We heard there from Laurent Mekies, the team principal of Red Bull, overtaking is tricky around here. And a little conundrum that I was thinking of coming into this weekend between especially the 2 McLaren drivers that could come back to bite them. We've seen throughout the year how they like to keep fairness, and that's how they've instilled their drivers to allow them both to fight evenly for this title. But you go back to Monza and the pit lane issue and asking Piastri to give back the position to Lando Norris, who had lost out due to a slow pit stop. The strategy advantage that helped Lando Norris in Hungary. What happens if we get something similar tonight in Qatar?
Well, it's a very, very good question, Harry. I mean, Andrea Stella, the McLaren team principal, has been very clear this weekend that nothing changes in the way they approach their team. But you're absolutely right that if some kind of scenario arises where one driver is disadvantaged over the other one, say for example, Piastri's led most of the race with Norris second, and then Piastri has a pit stop problem and drops down to second. If they're true to form, they have to ask Norris to let him back past again. But if they did, Norris would basically be saying, I'm giving up the chance to win the World Championship today. But then if he doesn't do that, he'll be the guy who wins the World Championship by going against all his team guidelines. So it's a very delicious prospect. But I think if you were to ask Stella, and no one has asked him this weekend, he would say, well, let's not deal with hypotheticals.
Let's head back down to Gordon Ramsay again. He's with Jenny.
Yeah, I promised I'd come back to him. We were forming an orderly queue, which was lovely.
I was trying to hide.
No such luck.
220 pounds, it's difficult to hide nowadays.
It's the blonde hair that gives it away. How are you finding it? I know you spent some time with McLaren today. What's the atmosphere like?
The atmosphere in the garage is incredible. Both drivers super relaxed, so focused. No team orders, which is nice. And listen, it's Lando's to lose. So I hope he gets it tonight so he can enjoy racing next weekend without the pressure. He's worked so hard. They both worked so hard, but the car's looking fast this weekend. It's some of the best results all season.
He's trying to be the 11th world champion from Britain. What do you think his chances are really starting P2, going down that straight?
The chances are high. I mean, first of all, it would be great to have another British champion. And secondly, it's the home of racing. you can't go anywhere near Bicester, Daventry, Brackley, Milton Keynes without a racing team. So it's the epicenter, right? And I think tonight will reaffirm that. So fingers crossed, successful and a safe race.
Okay, I'll let you go. Thank you so much. Hide away now.
Let's get Gordon Ramsay in the box. Great punditry from the chef, who does certainly like to rock up at a Formula One race or two, fresh off the back of Las Vegas, like the rest of us do, and arrives in Qatar. But the grid, as you can hear from the celebs and stars from the sporting and entertainment world, all flocking to the Losail International Circuit to see if Lando Norris can clinch the title tonight. If he wins the race, he is champion, or if he outscores Piastri by 4 points and doesn't lose any points to Verstappen, he will be champion. We'll of course be updating you throughout the course of the 57 laps that come our way. We were just speaking about potential headaches, and we'll go back to Jenny Gow down on the grid.
I am your potential headache. Sorry, Harry. I'm here with Toto Wolff, CEO of Mercedes. Toto, how are you feeling ahead of this race?
Excited.
Yeah.
Let's see what it gives.
I mean, you know what's up ahead of you. That's a championship battle. How involved can Mercedes, George Russell and Kimi Antonelli get?
Well, we'd like to win the race or be on the podium, so hopefully we get involved.
Can you keep up with the pace of the McLarens? They seem in very good form.
I'm not sure.
Oh, good luck. He's off.
He's off. Good work, Jenny, with Toto Wolff, the team principal of Mercedes. Right, Mark, what are we expecting from the strategy? We know there's going to be at least 2 stops, but what more can we predict at this stage?
I think the sort of probably the preferred option would be 2 stints on medium and then a short run on the softs, the faster soft tyre towards the end. That gives you the best performance of that soft tyre. The car's at its lightest, having burnt off all the fuel. The racetrack's at its sort of grippiest with all the rubber going down, so you can use that tyre to maybe make up something at the end. But there is, of course, a controversion of that, where you could maybe use a soft tyre at the beginning of the race, try and give yourself a better start. We talked about that being the best opportunity to make up places, so maybe some will go for that. And of course, you could still try and throw in a hard tyre. I think it's much less likely because we're not going to get any stints longer than 25 laps. The hard tyre would be the one if you want to run very, very long in this race. That option has been taken away from the teams by that lap limit imposed by Pirelli.
There's also a high chance of safety car here. It's around about, I think, 67%, depending on what numbers you look at. So either way, it could well happen. You could gain about 10 seconds for stopping under a safety car. So I suppose, does that mean the chances are you want to extend right up to that 25 limit on your first stint at the very least?
Yeah, I think that's what you're going to see most teams do. However, having said all that, you're probably going to want to try and maximise those 25 laps. However, as we heard, I think Zach Brown said earlier on, the undercut where you stop 1 lap before your main rival, get into the pits, get some fresh tyres and really maximise the use of those fresh tyres on that opening out lap, that's quite powerful here. So that game of cat and mouse around when you make your first stop could be a real critical component of who does best in this race.
Grid starting to clear, and before she gets shuffled out the way, we'll check back in with Jenny.
Yeah, just on this 2 stops, worth looking at around lap 30. That's the time that a safety car could throw us all up in the air, because they'll only have 2 laps to go until they need to change. If they're following a safety car around at that point in time, then everyone could file not through the start-finish line, but actually into the pit lane, and you could get 20 cars all trying to stop at the same time. It takes about 4 seconds to clear 1 car for the next one to slot into place. So I don't know what fun and games they're going to have, but I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Could be a really busy pit lane at some point. We had Zach Brown, I think, talking about double stacking, Mark, and things like that. Again, it comes back to, well, which driver gets the priority. There's going to be a lot of intensity on the pit crews this evening.
Yeah, really intense. The driver that gets priority is generally the driver in the lead of that race within that team. That's normally the way teams, certainly at McLaren, that's the way they'll run that. But you're right, everybody is going to feel that intensity, that pressure. You don't want to be the guy that makes any kind of mistake. And there have been issues in the pits for McLaren and other teams this year. It's not been smooth sailing all the way through. One of those, just imagine something like that happens to you with the world's eyes watching and so much at stake. That pressure is real and it's high for everybody. So everyone's got to be at the top of their game up and down the pit lane today.
We're just seeing some great images of the CEO of McLaren, Zach Brown, still on the grid, talking to the team principal Toto Wolff. Watching is Jenny Gow.
Yes, I've managed to find Sir David Beckham in the McLaren garage. How are you? How do you find yourself here?
I'm really great, to be honest. I'm always visiting Qatar for many different reasons, but obviously I like to get as many F1 races in. And I've been here a few times now, so that's kind of how I've ended up here.
Are you excited by the state of the championship? You're in the McLaren garage, so I'm guessing who you're cheering on.
Look, I think we're always excited about occasions like this, and F1 has grown so much over the years. Celebrating their anniversary of 75 years this year, and then it's been so exciting over the last few years because of obviously the dominance of Max, and then obviously with Lando and Oscar this season have been incredible. The first half was all about how Oscar was driving, and then the second part was about Lando. But I haven't got a favourite team, but in all honesty, I love F1 in general. I love the race, I love the drivers, I love the excitement around it. But of course, Lando being British, I'd love to see him bring it home.
Do you think he can do it today?
That first corner is an important one, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be great for the fans. It's going to be an amazing spectacle because they do so many great things here in Qatar, in Doha. And I think it's going to be an amazing day, amazing night. But I've been in this garage actually quite a few times, so I'm very lucky.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the race.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Jenny absolutely cleaning up on the grid in Qatar, and in the pit lane as well. So David Beckham there with Jenny Gow as we are less than 5 minutes away from ramping up to the start of the penultimate race of the season here at the Losail International Circuit for the Qatar Grand Prix. Whilst naturally our attention is all on the top three drivers, our title protagonists, I think it's worth just having a look at the two Mercedes drivers who line up right behind them. George Russell is fourth, Kimi Antonelli is fifth. Could they throw a spanner into the title fight today?
Absolutely they could. I think particularly George Russell, who's looked quick at many times across the weekend. He got himself right up into the front row for the sprint, and a little bit like Verstappen, he doesn't have too much to lose here. He knows the people around him have got to be really quite cautious, especially Lando. So absolutely he can get himself all the way down into turn one. He will have his elbows out just the way that Verstappen will.
Yeah, it was a good run for George Russell in the sprint race yesterday as well, finishing in second. And there is a battle for second going on in the constructors, which is vital for Mercedes at the very least. They got 41 points over Red Bull, and then they are 22 points ahead of Ferrari, who now seem to kind of be out of the fight for second, and they really fallen down to fourth. And it's been a pretty woeful weekend for Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, Mark.
I mean, so sad to see. It's been really disappointing. It's been a disappointing season, but it just feels like it's getting worse towards the end, not any better, particularly on the hands of Lewis Hamilton, knocked out in Q1 for the second weekend running. Just really shocking. They cannot do anything to get that car working. Charles Leclerc, who tried everything and was literally wringing its neck, had a massive high-speed spin in qualifying because he's having to go so close to the limit to get anything out of it. And even when he does that, the most he could get out of it was P10.
Charles Leclerc said there is zero performance in this car. I mean, it's just shocking, isn't it? Hamilton is all the way down in 17th. He got his third consecutive Q1 elimination. The first time that's happened since 2009.
They need the season to end, and to end quickly, so they can start moving ahead and thinking very heavily about next year. Of course, they've been doing that for a long time, and they will be desperately hoping that the big changes coming into this sport next year give them an opportunity to reset, come up with something brand new that might put them back towards the front end of the grid.
Well, let's see if Ferrari can gain anything. Charles Leclerc starts inside the points. Can he hold on to it? He couldn't yesterday in the sprint race, and difficult to overtake here. Worth just casting our mind at some of the midfield battles as well. Best of the rest is really Isaac Hadjar, starting from 6th in the Racing Bulls. Many expect him to be promoted up to the Red Bull seat next year. Still not confirmed, but could be a nice battle there. We've got the Williams of Carlos Sainz too, and even the Rogue Alpine.
Yeah, that midfield battle is really quite intriguing, actually. And a couple of drivers, Gasly, a couple of the Williams guys really standing out. Hadjar, as you say, some really strong performances. So there's a lot still to play for in that part. And of course, like anything, any of that could still play a part in the bigger picture of the championship.
Okay, well, the sky is dark over the Losail International Circuit. I think we're almost there. You're listening to 5 Live F1 here on 5 Sports Extra. We're just moments away from the formation lap and lights out. Our 3 title contenders occupy the first 3 slots on the grid. We'll run you through all the runners and riders in a moment. It's hot, humid under the Losail night sky. 20 drivers are about to tackle 57 laps. A new world champion could be crowned in Qatar. It's time for the Grand Prix. Cars on the grid, with one from the pit lane in Franco Colapinto. Bortoletto with a 5-place grid penalty is 19th, behind Lance Stroll. Lewis Hamilton will be 17th, behind Esteban Ocon's Haas in 16th. Tsunoda is in 15th, behind Alex Albon's Williams. Oliver Behrman starts 13th, behind Liam Lawson in the Racing Bulls, with Nico Hülkenberg on the fringes of the top 10. Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari 10th, behind Pierre Gasly's Alpine. Then comes Fernando Alonso in 8th, behind his compatriot Carlos Sainz in 7th. Isaac Hadjar from 6th on the grid. The 2 Mercedes, Antonelli behind Russell 4th and 5th. Then it's into the top 3. Verstappen 3rd, Norris 2nd, and your pole sitter Piastri. We are on the formation lap then, as Oscar Piastri weaves left and weaves right, warming up his tyres. And we can see, Mark, what tyres they will start this race on.
Yeah, and all of the top 10.
Red Bull's Max Verstappen making his way round now in 3rd. Massive day for Lando Norris indeed. Welcome to listeners on 5 Live. We are on the formation lap. Alongside me in the commentary box is the former McLaren mechanic Mark Priestley. Lando Norris can win the title tonight if he wins the race, Mark, but he starts 2nd behind his teammate.
He does. The job sounds simple, but it's far from that. He's got to get through the first corner, ideally overtaking his teammates. The best opportunity to do that, but that is not easy. He's on the dirty side of the grid. Easier on the other side, the side occupied by Piastri and Verstappen. This is going to be fireworks. The top 10 all starting on the medium tyre, with only Hülkenberg and Hamilton way further back, starting on the soft.
It's a mandatory 2-stop race as well. That's been mandated by Pirelli, the tyre supplier, due to the extremities of the track and the curbs. Very easily can these tyres feel a puncture. So we will have at least 2 stops in this race as the 2 McLarens, papaya orange, line up on the front row. Max Verstappen, an outside bet in this championship, lines up in 3rd, with the 2 Mercedes behind of George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. We will have 19 cars on the grid. 1 will start from the pit lane after changes made to his car in the form of the Alpine driver Franco Colapinto. But it's a long, hot race, Mark. Got to keep you cool.
Yeah, which is easier said than done, as we said, but this opening lap is going to be super critical. Not the easiest circuit to overtake on. There's a huge amount of pressure, particularly at the front end of the grid. I cannot wait to see how this unfolds.
Final car lining up in position then. The sky is dark over the Losail International Circuit. It's a 371-metre run from pole position occupied by Oscar Piastri down to turn 1, a right-hander. The championship could be won tonight. It's eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in Qatar. It's a good start from Oscar Piastri, who holds his line. Lando Norris is down to third as Max Verstappen sweeps round the outside in the Red Bull and up into second. He'll have the inside line going into the left-hander of turn 2. Lando Norris does not fight it. Oscar Piastri holds the lead. Verstappen in second with Lando Norris following the Red Bull man, trying to make a move through the double right-handers of 4 and 5. Has to give it up. Norris down to third.
Well, it's exactly what we thought might happen. Verstappen on the cleaner side of the grid, just got a little bit more purchase, got a nicer launch off the line. Extra few metres, got him past the McLaren of Lando Norris. But importantly for Lando, he's got through the first few corners safely and unscathed.
A bit of movement further back. It's a clean start, though, for everyone. Piastri leads this race. Verstappen in second. Then comes Norris. Antonelli's up to fourth. George Russell has lost positions. He's down to 7th, having started in 4th as Lewis Hamilton is going toe-to-toe with the Racing Bulls of Liam Lawson. Hamilton's up positions, started down in 17th spot, and he's up to 14th. Good start from the 7-time world champion, who's been struggling so far this weekend as we rapidly approach the end of lap 1. It's Piastri who leads, exactly what he needs to do to keep his title hopes alive. Verstappen is second, Norris third. Then comes Antonelli. Sainz rockets up to the top 5. Alonso, Russell, Hadjar, Gasly and Leclerc occupy the top 10. They are your point scorers. Then comes Hülkenberg, Behrman, Lawson, Hamilton and Ocon the top 15, with Tsunoda, Albon, Bortoletto, Stroll and Colapinto 20th and last.
Right, things settling down then just after the first 2 laps. Just small gaps starting to appear, particularly around the top 3. George Russell, that was such a disappointment, dropping back to P7. He was a guy we thought might get in the mix here. Very fast over the course of this weekend. A car that's working very well. There is a long, long way to go, but that certainly wasn't the start that he needed.
Not at all, and actually falling back slightly into the clutches of Kimi Antonelli's Mercedes, which is in 4th, is Lando Norris. Decided, I think visibly for us to see, to not try anything too drastic into turn 1 on lap 1. Went side by side with Max Verstappen, but everybody was wary of Max Verstappen and what he would do, and he's done exactly what he promised to do. Try something into turn 1 on lap 1, the only chance he would have to do it. And if it ends like this, the championship will go to Abu Dhabi, but we certainly have a fair way to go until then. Coming towards the end of lap 2 of 57, it is Oscar Piastri who leads by almost 1.5 seconds. Verstappen second and Lando Norris in third. You can listen to continued uninterrupted coverage over on 5 Sports Extra. Lap 3 begins as they hit the brakes for turn 1. The right-hander Nico Hülkenberg has just demoted Charles Leclerc out of the points further down and is coming for Pierre Gasly. Hülkenberg making the most then of starting on his fresh soft rubber, forces Gasly a little deep. Side by side they run into the left-hander of 2. Gasly holds 9th for now.
Gasly's got a problem with his car. There's something stuck under it or something broken. Sparks flying at every point all the way around this lap. He's struggling to get the car turned into corners, and Hülkenberg right behind him now is smelling blood. Out front though, Oscar Piastri with things slightly under control at the moment. 1.7 seconds the gap with DRS enabled, which means Verstappen cannot open that rear wing. Norris is a further 3.5 seconds back. Just behind him though, Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes really chasing him down hard. He knows that Lando Norris can't afford to take too many risks today.
Piastri nearly 2 seconds now clear of Verstappen. Norris third, Antonelli Sainz the top 5. Let's check in with our pit lane reporter Jenny Gow.
2 cars start on the soft tyres. That was Nico Hülkenberg who's rocketed up, and also the Hamilton in the Ferrari. Just to note, they can only last between 10 and 12 laps, say Pirelli, so expect people to come in for an early pit stop if they started on those soft tyres.
Yeah, so the likes of Nico Hülkenberg, Lewis Hamilton too on the soft tyre, expecting them to have an early stop. Might have been hoping for a bit of a safety car. Still a high probability, but we've got through the first few laps fairly unscathed. DRS is enabled. That drag drag reduction system, which allows you to open the rear wing when you're within a second of the car in front. Was open just as Oscar, was open for some in the pack, and it's kind of staying even at the moment between the top two, about 2 seconds.
Yeah, interestingly, the rear wing was open for Kimi Antonelli, who's chasing down Lando Norris. So Lando doesn't have DRS from Verstappen in front of him. Kimi Antonelli behind him absolutely does, so he's closing.
We're just getting another look at the start of the race, and Max Verstappen, with a great launch from the clean side of the grid, actually made it look super easy. Norris didn't fight him hard for that one, swooped around the outside of him into turn 1.
Yeah, it was really good from Oscar Piastri, really very good actually. Lando Norris came very, very close to taking back that position against Verstappen, right underneath the rear wing, but you've got to get up very early in the morning to get past Verstappen, particularly in a situation like this.
Now, Russell, I think, lost all of his positions coming into the left-hander of turn 2. I think he had a wobble, as we're just trying to see what happened from the back of the McLaren. I think he got a little bit of steering, a little bit of understeer, and fell off the track.
He did. He was right up behind his teammate, but had that big wobble, ran very, very wide, which allowed the others to come through, and that's cost him dearly, because now it's going to be very hard to fight his way back from where he is right now, down in P7. But out front, it was really clean from the 3 men chasing a world title.
Yeah, there's just hearing the sounds of Lewis Hamilton fighting right at the back of the field. He's up to 14th, was going wheel to wheel with the Racing Bulls of Liam Lawson, but Liam Lawson unfortunately won that battle for Lewis Hamilton to stay behind, as Lewis Hamilton's teammate was pushed outside of turn 1 and onto the gravel by the Sauber of Nico Hülkenberg, who's still stuck behind Pierre Gasly, who he himself just had a little bit of a moment. And Jenny, I think you got an update on Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, I spoke to the team after you said that there was damage on the floor of the car. He went wide at turn 14. Going wide here penalises drivers quite severely if they can damage their car on the curbs. So not in a happy place, but holding on to P9 at the minute.
Yeah, we just saw it, didn't we, Mark? The sounds of Gasly running over the gravel. It looks like a little bit falling off the underside of that Alpine.
Yeah, importantly, it doesn't look like it's something that's going to stop his race, so he's going to keep going. But of course, every little component on a Formula 1 car is there for a very good reason. It will be costing him some kind of downforce. It looks like a little piece of the edge of the floor or something like that. It's dragging along the tarmac, sparking away.
Extreme balance shifts right to left-hand corners.
Quite extreme balance shifts right to left-hand corners is what Max Verstappen is just said on the radio. At the moment, he's in second, still maintaining around about 2.1 second gap to Oscar Piastri. What does that mean, Mark, do you think?
It just means that the balance shift he's talking about is when he's going through a left-hand corner, he's feeling something different in terms of understeer versus oversteer, how the car's behaving, to the way that it feels going into a right-hand corner. So potentially something to do with setup, or more likely to do with tyre temperature. Maybe there's a slight imbalance in tyre temperature. He's got to get working on that, get that settled down, and hopefully that'll equalise.
Can't be hampering him too badly, because he's just set the fastest lap of the race so far. Also from race control, black and white flag for car number 10. That's Pierre Gasly for rejoining unsafely. One can presume that's from his little moment off at turn 14. He's still able to keep Nico Hülkenberg behind him, but Hülkenberg, I think, will be getting a bit frustrated, because Hülkenberg is on the soft tyre, the Red Bull rubber, which will degrade quickly, and he's running out of advantage over Gasly to make this work. Lap 6 of 57 is Oscar Piastri, who started on pole position, who leads this Grand Prix ahead of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull and Lando Norris in third. If it ends like this, the championship goes to Abu Dhabi next week. Antonelli is fourth, Sainz fifth, then comes Alonso, Russell, Hadjar, Gasly, Hülkenberg, the top 10.
And not just does it go to Abu Dhabi, but it goes to Abu Dhabi with all 3 contenders still in it if it stays like this, with the fact that Max Verstappen is ahead of Lando Norris. There is, of course, a long, long way to go. We've settled down now into that opening stint is over. We've got into this sort of race pace where people have got tyres under control, temperatures are working well. We're now starting to see gaps form. The next really interesting part is going to be who blinks first when it comes to that pit stop we talked about. There's a 25 lap limit on how long you can run any set of tyres. That includes anything they've done prior to the race start, so laps to the grid. If anyone's used them for anything prior to that as well, they all count. 25 limits maximum. Oh, it's a crash!
And we've got Nico Hülkenberg, who I thought had just managed to overtake Pierre Gasly, but he's off on the exit of turn 1 as you come into turn 2, and it's a big shunt for Nico Hülkenberg. Surely a safety car. And what's that going to do for strategy? Has he come together with Pierre Gasly? I think he has, as sparks glow from the underside of the pink and blue Alpine. Gasly limping home towards the pit lane. Safety car is out here in Qatar on lap 7.
I mean, there's an argument that could even be a red flag. There is debris everywhere, a car stranded in the infield of the circuit. But this is a really intriguing situation here, right? Because we've got this 25 lap limit. We're only on lap 7, so way earlier than anyone would have really ideally liked to pit, unless you're on the soft tyre. But the guy on the soft tyre is Nico Hülkenberg, who's crashed his car.
But interestingly, there are exactly 50 laps to go, so that's 25 laps for 2 sets of tyres, exactly. So are people going to stop or not? Oscar Piastri comes round and he hasn't pitted.
Piastri stays out and starts another lap. There is action going on in the pit lane in the form of Alpine, but we are going to have action from Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Let's head down to Jenny Gow as he swings into pit lane.
Yeah, Max Verstappen's come in, followed by one of the Mercedes, Ferraris, the other Mercedes. It's fast and furious down here. We thought it might go this way. So a new set of medium tyres, but there's a problem with the Mercedes. It won't release, but maybe they didn't have the gap, but it's gone out now. And now they do the next Mercedes car. They have to hold so they can find a gap as well. Lewis Hamilton's in now. Charles Leclerc has already stopped for a pit stop. The only people who don't seem to have budged at all so far are the McLarens. They are preparing themselves to come in the next lap, but will they? This is fascinating.
Yeah, the top 2 have stayed out. Piastri leads, Lando Norris. Everybody else filing in. It was a slow stop for Kimi Antonelli. That held up George Russell behind as well in the double stack. Andrew.
Esteban Ocon in the Haas has not come in. He's the only other driver apart from the 2 McLarens not to pit. Really interesting that McLaren have done it that way. I wonder why. Are they going to double stack them on this next lap round? Have they got time to do that without being passed by everybody else?
Esteban Ocon, should say, is under investigation for a false start, so that's a pretty slam dunk penalty coming the way of Esteban Ocon. We'll update you as race control looks more into that moving before the start, and as I say, he's been given a 5-second time penalty which he'll have to serve at his first pit stop. But it's lap 8 of 57 after a safety car has been called due to a crash for Nico Hülkenberg in the Sauber. He's out of the car and just standing forlornly on the side of the grid. It was contact with Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, Mark, and we're about to see what happens.
Yeah, running up the outside into turn 1 goes Hülkenberg, around the outside just towards the apex. Yeah, Gasly drifted a slight little bit wide. His rear wheel caught the front wheel of Hülkenberg's car, spun him round. He had nowhere to go.
And for Nico Hülkenberg, that is race over then, and there is the contact there. Right, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, that cued a whole load of pit stops, but Piastri and Norris stayed out. Max Verstappen pitted along with pretty much everybody else. Esteban Ocon has also now come in. Big crash for Nico Hülkenberg in the Sauber after contact with Pierre Gasly's Alpine. Hülkenberg out of the car and out of the race.
Unbelievable. I gave him loads of space.
That's what the German racer had to say about that. I'm joined by the former McLaren mechanic, Mark Priestley. This has caused a safety car to come out and a flood of action in the pit lane, Mark, but curiously, neither McLaren driver coming in.
Not yet. We're still under safety car conditions as they clear up the debris from that stricken Sauber. This is exactly what McLaren didn't need. They wanted a boring race. They wanted something that was really normal, unexceptional in every way. This has thrown a little bit of a cat amongst the pigeons, because now we've got the 2 McLarens, Piastri from Norris at the front of the field behind the safety car. We've then got Max Verstappen, who's just come in and put some fresh tyres on. A difference in pace perhaps between Verstappen now and the 2 McLarens. This championship is still not done yet.
Early drama here in Qatar for the penultimate race of the season. Lap 9 of 57.
Should have just followed him in there if you knew the car ahead was staying out.
They have lost all their flexibility for the remainder of the race.
That was Lando Norris wondering why they didn't go into the pit. It's going to be interesting to see how this one pans out, but under safety car conditions, Piastri leads Lando Norris yet to pit, with Verstappen, who has done, third. Okay, lap 9 of 57. safety car is out. It's Piastri, Norris, then Verstappen, Sainz, Antonelli, the top 5. Then comes Alonso, Hadjar, Russell and Charles Leclerc are the top 10. Andrew.
That was a really interesting radio message from Lando Norris, because it basically confirmed they are racing each other. He was saying, I wanted to do a different strategy from Oscar Piastri in front of me. I wanted to go into the pits with Max Verstappen, not stay out with Oscar Piastri. His engineers saying, no, it was better for us because you get more flexibility into the race, and the others are kind of locked into this 25 laps for each sets of tyres now that they've got remaining in the race because of the Pirelli restriction. But just confirmation that McLaren are racing against each other as well as against Max Verstappen.
Thanks for that. That's the BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin. In the commentary box is the former McLaren mechanic Mark Priestley, and keeping an eye on things in what was a very busy pit lane was Jenny Gow.
It had to be, didn't it? Lap 7, the magic number. They just needed to make it to lap 7 for all of them to stream in. Really interesting, McLaren haven't. They actually did send the mechanics out. Got a wave yellow flag at the moment on the start-finish straight. And they sent the mechanics out to do a pit stop, but they took it back and went back inside the garage. So I don't know if communication is flowing particularly well at McLaren. They've made a bold decision, though. Let's see if they can win this race and who will win it for them.
The reason why Norris would have come on the radio like that is he knows that he can't pass his Verstappen radio.
Expect McLarens to push hard on the restart to lap 25, Max. Obviously, they've got to do their best to generate as much of a gap as possible to you.
Yeah, the same time I can't let them go too far away.
No, but we just need the 2 fastest stints.
So Norris is thinking, I can't pass my teammate out on track, so I've got to do something different. That's why he wanted the alternative strategy. So it's interesting that McLaren haven't let him do that. They obviously think that's the optimum race for him. But is it the optimum race for him in the context of his private championship battle with Piastri?
Well, I'll tell you what is interesting about this McLaren decision is they're gambling on a potential another safety car, because what Max Verstappen and all of the others have locked themselves into, as you just heard on the radio there, is they've got 50 laps with 2 25-lap stints. That gives them 1 lap. There's only 1 lap they can make their pit stop on, and everyone who's made that stop effectively has to do the same.
So Lando, the goal here now is really good pace to lap 25. Basically, everyone else will be stopping on lap 32. We know that now.
There you go. So that's exactly what I was just saying. There's going to be 1 lap. It's lap 32 when the entire field, apart from Piastri and Norris, will be making their pit stop. That means there's no flexibility. If there's another safety car, they can't take advantage of it. They can't use an undercut to get past anybody. They're locked in, and McLaren know that.
Safety car is coming to an end as Oscar Piastri slows the pack. Lando Norris behind.
Reminder, get close.
Will Joseph, Lando Norris's engineer, geeing him up to get close right under the rear wing of Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen lurks there too, and Oscar Piastri into the right-hander of turn 14 puts his foot to the floor, and we are back racing here in Qatar, and it's a good restart for Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, but Lando Norris is following, so too is Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz in the Williams, who's worked his way up into a magnificent 4th spot. Round the final corner then, as we cross the line for lap number 11 of 57 here at the Losail International Circuit. We're back to green flag running. Turn 1 approaches the right-hander, and it's Piastri, Norris, Verstappen the top 3. Then comes Sainz, Antonelli the top 5, with Alonso, Hadjar, Russell, Leclerc and Behrman now up inside the top 10. Lawson is 11th, then comes Tsunoda, Albon, Hamilton's in 14th, Bortoletto the top 15, with Stroll, Colapinto, Ocon and Gasly the 19 remaining runners. Nico Hülkenberg is out of this race.
That was another really good job from Oscar Piastri. Kept things nicely under control. The pressure on his shoulders must be immense, but he got away well. Lando did everything he could to stay close to him. Max Verstappen trying to do the same behind him. But we're now back into this status quo situation. The gap's just forming, just over a second between each of those top 3 cars.
The other thing to bear in mind about this strategy that McLaren are on now is that Norris cannot undercut Piastri, because Piastri has pit stop priority as the leader. So Norris is a bit stuck at the moment, and of course Max Verstappen behind them both. He has better tyres than both of them now, so okay, he doesn't want to damage his tyres by getting too close to them, but he should be able to stick with them and put them under real threat for in that pit stop period that they're coming up to in about, 17 laps time or something.
This is going to be a fascinating race as it unfolds. The sound you can hear is Max Verstappen, the reigning champion, trying to go for a 5th world title. and keep himself in the running until the bitter end. We have one more race to go next weekend in Abu Dhabi, and right now Oscar Piastri, who leads this race second in the championship, is doing everything he can to keep his title bid alive. Lando Norris, he doesn't need to win this race, but it will go a long way if he could, and right now just keeping behind his teammate, about 1.2 seconds the gap, both still to stop. The remainder of the field has done.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. Of course, the cars that have stopped now only need to stop once more. We said there were a 25 lap maximum. We've got 50 laps from the point where they made their pit stop, so one more stop will do it. 2 stints on a tyre. The 2 McLarens, of course, still have to stop twice, so there is a very difference. We talked about there may be the same strategy right across the board here. Well, not anymore. That safety car has really thrown things up, and I think what's most interesting about this, there's no way of knowing right now whether McLaren have pulled a blinder or not, because it will depend on what happens. They've got this flexibility we talked about with strategy, which the others don't have, but that's really gambling that something happens, because it may well be that making one stop on lap 32 is the fastest way to get to the end. If there's no more safety cars, there's no more interference, then maybe Verstappen's played a blinder.
You want to build about a 26-second gap for a pit stop if all runs smoothly under green flag conditions, half that if you stop under a safety car or a virtual safety car. So Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris will want to build that buffer to Max Verstappen as we head into turn 1 once again on lap 13 of 57. 1.5 seconds splitting the 2 McLaren drivers, then Max Verstappen a further 3 seconds behind, as the rest of the field is pretty stuck to each other. It has to be said, it's a bit of a DRS train developing throughout the remainder of the field. Lap 13 of 57, Oscar Piastri leads after the safety car came out. It's back in again. Lando Norris is second, Max Verstappen in third. The former McLaren mechanic Mark Priestley is alongside him. But the big debate now, Mark, is what do McLaren do when it comes to their strategy? They didn't pit under the safety car. Max Verstappen did. Yeah, not just Max Verstappen, but the entire field behind him all made their stop. There are now 50 laps from the point of that pit stop, 50 laps to the end of the race. We've got a 25 lap limit set by Pirelli on any set of tyres in this Grand Prix. You don't need to be a genius to work out the maths. 50 divided by 2. There is 1 lap when the entire field, apart from McLaren who didn't make a stop, will have to make their pit stop. So the strategy is up in the air. We've got 2 games at play here. McLaren have a little bit of flexibility, the rest of the field don't, and that's all going to be dependent on how this race plays out. Are there going to be more pit stops? Are there going to be more safety cars, rather? This is an interesting one to follow from here on in. More jeopardy on the way, but it is Piastri, Norris and Verstappen, the top 3, and Steve, if it ends like this, the championship goes down to the wire next week in Abu Dhabi. Right, lap 14 of 57, 2 seconds the gap between Piastri and Norris, 3.8 seconds further back is Max Verstappen, then comes Sainz and Antonelli in the top 5. Alonso is 6th ahead of Hadjar in 7th. Russell, after a tough start to this race, has, after the pit stops, filtered out in 8th. Leclerc back up into the points now in 9th. Behrman's benefited, having started outside of the points and worked his way up into 10th. Then comes Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda is in 12th. Alex Albon's in 13th. Lewis Hamilton hasn't really been able to make any gains. He's stuck behind the Williams driver at the moment in 14th. Bortoletto is 15th, and this really is where the DRS train is, right at the back of from the midfield all the way to the back. Stroll, Colapinto, Ocon and Gasly 19th. Hulkenberg is out of this race. Here's the other interesting side of this. We know, as we keep saying, that Verstappen has to stop on lap 32. That means he can't put a soft tyre on to go for a full 25 lap stint. He's going to have to choose a hard tyre to get to the end of the race. That's a slower tyre. It's a least preferred tyre. McLaren will have the option to run the full 25 laps here in the stint they're on, go for another 25 lap stint on another medium tyre, and then put a much faster soft tyre on at the end. So even should they fall behind Verstappen, they will have a dramatic tyre offset for the closing part of this race. So this is by far the boring race we thought it might end up being. I think there's still a huge amount of interest at play here and a lot still to come. There certainly is, as we'll keep an eye on what's happening out in front. There is quite a tight battle in the midfield involving Isaac Hadjar in 7th, who's keeping George Russell at bay in the Mercedes. Charles Leclerc trying to salvage something after what's been a pretty woeful weekend for Ferrari, their worst best, quite possibly, of the season. And Ollie Behrman's keeping his nose in it as well in the Haas, following in 10th place. But they are all rather stuck in a DRS train. Another thing to watch out for is track limits here. That has been penalising some drivers. We saw it applied to Yuki Tsunoda and Kimi Antonelli in the sprint race yesterday. They both got a 5-second time penalty. Already warnings have been coming in. 3 strikes you get, and then you get hit with a penalty. So that will be another element to add to this intriguing Qatar Grand Prix.
Not relevant to the championship fight, which I'll come on to in just a second, but Fernando Alonso in 6th, you can already see what he's trying to do. He's backing everybody up.
Classic.
Because he knows they all have to stop on the same lap. So they can't undercut him. So he can go as slow as he likes to look after his tyres, then go a bit quickly towards the end of the stint to try and build a gap, and then keep 6th place to the end of the race. Now, at the front, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, they are pulling away from Max Verstappen quite quickly, as Red Bull thought that they would. But they're unlikely to pull enough of a gap to get a pit stop and come out ahead. So they will come out behind Verstappen, but then Verstappen will come out behind them after his second stop. What happens then after McLaren's second stop? Can Verstappen keep them behind him, or one of them behind him, in that final stint of his? Can he go fast enough to get one of them to come out behind him? That's the trick.
What if we get another safety car?
Well, it's a really good question. What if? Lots of what if, sorry.
and that's that point I was making. If Verstappen's got to keep 2 McLarens behind, Verstappen will be on the hard tyre, I'm fairly sure. The 2 McLarens almost certainly will be on the soft tyre. So there's a real pace offset at that stage in the race. So it's doable.
Last lap around for Oscar Piastri was a 1:25.6. Last lap around for Lando Norris, a 1:25.7. For Max Verstappen, it was 1:26.2. So they are slowly pulling away, but as Andrew says, they will fall behind when they come in for their pit stop on lap 25. Pirelli bringing in a maximum tyre limit for this race, which rather leads us to at least a mandatory 2-stop race. Race control, yellow flag infringement has been noted for Lance Stroll. Should say, I saw that Esteban Ocon, I mentioned that earlier, he jumped his start, got a 5-second time penalty, and then he failed to serve it correctly in the pit lane. So that's a double blow, really, to the Haas driver's hopes, who's now all but last in this race, down in 18th.
Yeah, now the other part of talking about safety car, potential safety cars in this race, with it being this DRS train, with the field so closed up, people are going to get more and more frustrated as this race goes on. They're all bunched up, as Andrew said, largely behind Fernando Alonso. No gaps between anybody. It's a sort of thing that really entices a big lunge. You don't want to be stuck there forever. They're all getting desperate to get past. That big lunge, as we well know, can easily lead to contact, and that can lead to another safety car. So there's a lot still at play here.
Lap 17 of 57 here at the Lusail International Circuit in Qatar. We're just north of the capital city of Doha. Lando Norris coming into this race leading the championship by 22 points from Oscar Piastri and 25 points ahead of Max Verstappen. But right now, Norris sits behind Piastri, Verstappen in 3rd. Right now, the title would go down to the wire in Abu Dhabi, but we still have the first pit stop to play out for both McLaren drivers. Everybody else behind them, including Max Verstappen, pitted under the safety car, but they too will also have to come in again. So will it even out come the final stint, or will we get another safety car, virtual safety car, or even a red flag that can throw yet more drama into what has been a tantalising prospect so far of a Qatar Grand Prix? If Piastri beats Norris, the championship goes to Abu Dhabi. If Lando Norris takes victory under the lights here, he will be the 11th British Formula One world champion.
And don't forget that man Max Verstappen, at the moment still in the title hunt, but if it finishes as things stand with him behind Norris, then his championship will be done. He's got to find a way by the checkered flag to get in front of at least Lando Norris, if not both of them, to keep any hope of this championship alive. And if anyone can do that, we know Max has done it before, and he'll highly likely have a go.
But if he finishes behind Lando Norris, Verstappen is eliminated from title contention, and the gap between Norris and Piastri coming into Abu Dhabi would be 15 points, with it all still very much to play for as it currently stands. But this is Formula One, and we've still got a way to go yet. Lap 18 of 57. It's Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, the top 3, Sainz and Antonelli, the top 5. Alonso holding everybody up behind him is the wily old fox in the Aston Martin in 6th. He's holding up Isaac Hadjar, George Russell, Charles Leclerc and Ollie Behrman. That's the top 10. They are your current point scorers. Then comes Lawson, Tsunoda, Albon, Hamilton and Bortoletto, the top 15, with Stroll Stroll, Colapinto, Ocon and Gasly, the 19 drivers that remain in this race. Nico Hülkenberg out after contact with Gasly. That caused the safety car. 19 drivers remain.
Now at the front, Harry, Oscar Piastri is making his life very comfortable at the moment. He's already got a 3.3 second lead over Lando Norris. That's more than enough for him to get in and out and do a pit stop and not worry about Lando Norris behind him, not worry about being passed. So at the moment, he's in total control of the race. Norris is going to have to work out what he can possibly do about that. But what we learned in the sprint after the drivers got out of their cars is that following around Qatar is really difficult. Lots of medium and high-speed, long-duration corners, puts lots of strain on the tyres. So it's really hard for a driver behind to stay in touch with the driver in front.
It certainly is, but Piastri, with that clean air in front of him, doing everything he needs to do. He has returned to form this weekend after a rotten run of races, low grip tracks which have not been his friend, uncharacteristic mistakes. You think back to Baku, jumping the start, crashing on lap 1. It wasn't the champion-elect we thought it was. A return to the scene of his first victory in any sense in Formula One a couple of years ago when he stood on the top step of the rostrum in the F1 sprint. And it is Piastri that we knew from the start of the year returned to us, but Lando Norris has also been there or thereabouts. It's been nip and tuck between the two McLaren drivers. Right now, though, it is leaning the way of the Australian, but Max Verstappen still lurks with strategy still to unfold.
Yeah, we're in a quiet phase, if you like, of the race right now, but we know there's a lot more to come because of everything we've talked about, these variants in strategy that we didn't think we were going to get. We've definitely got now, after that early safety car, the two McLarens on some very different strategy to the way that Verstappen and the rest of the field are on. So there's a lot still to unpick and unfold here as we go through the remaining part of the race. For Piastri, this is exactly what he needed to do. As Andrew said, he's controlling the race very, very well. This is how his weekend has gone so far, pretty cleanly, no drama, no dramatics. It's gone exactly the way he needed to from start to finish. If he can continue like this, he'll be a happy man. For Norris, it's okay. He rolls on to Abu Dhabi if it stays this way. He's still in contention, still with a huge advantage. For Verstappen, the longer this race goes on, he gets more and more frustrated because he has to do something. Where it sits right now for Verstappen is simply not good enough.
Lap 20 of 57. Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin is in 6th and keeping everybody behind him, and I really do mean everybody. The entire field that sits behind him, 7th all the way down to 19th, are all tucked right under each other, with Alonso doing a magnificent job of running his own race and making sure he has the prime position when it comes for his second pit stop and second and last pit stop, which we expect everyone else to come in on around about lap 32, with the two McLarens yet to pit. They've done 20 laps of a maximum 25 on their stint, so expecting them to come in on lap 25.
Well, they can't both come in on 25, so Piastri will come in on 24 and Norris on 25, or maybe 23 and 24 depending on what they choose, but they will not stop on the same lap, and Piastri will stop first.
Will they definitely not stop on the same lap?
Well, they'd be ridiculous because it would cost the second driver an extra 4 or 5 seconds, and they're already going to come out behind a bunch of cars. At the moment, it takes about 26 seconds to do a pit stop. At the moment, Fernando Alonso, who's leading that massive train that we talked about earlier, is 23 seconds behind them. They're going to be hoping they can clear him and then come out behind Antonelli and the Mercedes. A few laps of clear air, and then they should have a tyre offset enough to pass him and Sainz and Verstappen. But can they actually pass them? Because Qatar, it's so difficult to pass here.
And that's why we're seeing that huge train develop behind Fernando Alonso, because nobody can actually pass around here. Overtaking so tricky, even with the aid of the drag reduction system down the start-finish straight. Lap 21 then at 57. We're getting close to that pit stop time for the two McLarens. Jenny.
Yes, and I'm just looking over the McLaren pit wall and all of the engineers standing and sitting there nervously twitching Piastri team radio on the way in just a moment.
He's saying his front left is struggling a bit now.
Okay, so just in order of the teams, they come into the pit lane in championship order. So the first box is McLaren and the last box is Sauber. And I think that actually helped out Carlos Sainz, who's running P4 at the moment, and Williams, that the penultimate box. So when they come in, they can see the way out, and it was a bit easier for them. But it will be a case of stacking everyone up and seeing who can benefit the most from those stacked pit stops with everybody else apart from McLaren.
Yeah, just on Carlos Sainz, he had a magnificent start as well. He already had a good qualifying, started 7th, worked his way up into 5th, and really penalised George Russell's mistake coming into the left-hander of turn 2. So he was already running up inside the top 5. Sainz, who qualified, let's not forget, inside the top 3 this time a week ago for the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and has been flying so far in the Williams. Meanwhile, his teammate is being noted for a black and white flag. Was he given a black and white flag for track limits? So he will not be allowed to do that again, or a penalty will be coming the way of Alex Albon, who is currently outside of the points and down in 13th.
So moments like this, Andrew just made a good point there, is they've got to get the McLarens out ahead of Alonso, otherwise they get caught up in that horrendous train that we've been talking about. But that relies on a good solid pit stop. They've got time to do it, and with all things going well, it won't be an issue. But all things don't always go well, and you can imagine the pressure ramping up on the people in that pit lane, particularly when there's a championship at stake. And I've been there myself. I know that it feels tense. The moments coming up to that pit stop, you're just desperately hoping that things are going to go well. You've literally got your fingers crossed. But all you can think about at times is making sure that this is the perfect slick pit stop that goes for a couple of seconds and no more than that. When you do one, you've then got to do the second car as well. You can't have one that goes well and one that doesn't. So there's so much at stake, not just for the drivers here. The team will be feeling this pressure in exactly the same way.
It has been a dramatic Qatar Grand Prix so far. Lap 23 of 57. Piastri leads Norris. Here is Norris.
And Lando, for the next tyre, we come down 1. Happy?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just struggling.
So for the next tyre, we'll come down 1. Happy? Yes, think so, is what Lando Norris replies with. What does that mean,
He's
Mark?
probably talking about front wing flap angle. So there are some pre-adjusted settings you can change very quickly in a pit stop. It's quite common to change the balance of the car when you put a fresh set of tyres on by changing that front wing angle. So he's probably talking about coming down by 1 step on that front wing.
So that's what is the communication between pit wall to Lando Norris as we tick over for another lap. 24 of 57. Piastri, Norris, then Verstappen. So are we about to see some pit lane action here for Oscar Piastri? He will get priority when it comes to the pit stops, as he is the leading driver out on track. Both McLarens yet to pit. Lando Norris is almost 4 seconds back now from his teammate Lando Norris. Just wonder if he's dropped back slightly in that last lap. A 125.8, 125.9, about a tenth between them. Verstappen 7, nearly 8 seconds further adrift in 3rd. But expecting then to see one of the McLarens, and it being Oscar Piastri, coming in for his first pit stop.
I think they're going to double stack them, because the point is he's done a lap to the grid on these tyres. He can't do any more than 25 in total. He has dropped back, you're right, it's about 4 seconds. It's nearly, yeah, you're right, Andrew, sorry, laps to the grid are not counting. However, they're very, very close. So they're on lap 24. He could well, yeah, so here we go. Piastri coming in. Lando's about 4 seconds back. That's about the limit where you could do a double shuffle, a double stack, but it's a risk. As Andrew pointed out, it is a risk. We'll see in a moment. I think it's just going to be Piastri. It'll be Lando next lap as Oscar comes round the final corner. He's had the call on the radio, and into the pit lane he goes.
Yeah, as he files in, slows down to hit the pit limiter. Jenny sees Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, he just got to the pit box number 81. It's a good stop, but it's slow. The front left, I think, was slow, slightly slowed by a couple of milliseconds. He's back out now. Sir David Beckham watching on. That's Piastri's pit stop on. They weren't double stacking them. Andrew Benson, of course you're right. Next up, it will be Lando Norris.
3.1 seconds. It is slow in the grand scheme of things for Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris continues round for another lap and takes the lead of the Grand Prix. And Fernando Alonso should do Oscar Piastri a favour here in Alonso's efforts in his own race, holding up the rest of the pack. That allows Piastri to feed nicely into a bit of clean air and crucially ahead of all the traffic behind him in 5th spot, expecting to see Lando Norris then in at the end of this lap.
Yeah, and it's going to be tight because that was a 3-second pit stop for Piastri, and he's come out just in front of that Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. They need a very good stop here to get Lando out in that very small gap between Oscar and Fernando. Otherwise, he gets stuck behind a slow-moving car, and that will really cost him.
Also, they'll be needing a quick pit stop too, just to make sure all runs smooth and they don't have any tricky conversations to have later on in this Grand Prix between their two drivers. McLaren have done the unthinkable so far this year and maintained peace and harmony between their two drivers, both gunning for their first World Championships. Lando Norris, the championship leader, is in. He slows down to 80 kilometers an hour. He hits the pit limiter. McLaren will be the first box in the pit lane as he comes into the pits, slows down to hit his markers. The wheels come off. It's a new set of mediums. It's so quick. It's so smooth. It's 2.2 seconds. Lando Norris has pitted following his teammate Oscar Piastri, and it's going to be tight between the two McLarens, but Piastri should sail on through and head into turn 1 ahead of his teammate Lando Norris. Max Verstappen takes the lead of this Grand Prix on lap 26 of 57, but we still have another mandatory pit stop to come, and we could see more jeopardy tonight in this title fight between Norris, Verstappen and Piastri. Lap 26 of 57 as Max Verstappen takes the lead and is pushing hard now. Sainz moves up into second, Antonelli third. So crucial for Piastri, even with the slow pit stop, gets out and still holds a lead over his teammate Lando Norris, who also crucially gets out ahead of that Fernando Alonso traffic jam.
Yeah, we said they needed a good stop, and that's exactly what they got. Had they done a 3-second pit stop with Lando Norris, the same that they did with Oscar Piastri, he would have been right wheel to wheel with Fernando Alonso as he came out the pits, and that would have been costly. Already now, Lando Norris breaking away from the Aston Martin. It's back at the front. It's Verstappen, though, going quickly, putting in personal bests. He's now trying to maximise the clear air in front of him.
5 laps on his tyre.
Lando Norris there, just being given some information after his first pit stop. Lance Stroll is under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. That's also usually a slam dunk. Lap 27 of 57, Verstappen leads Sainz, Antonelli, Piastri and Norris, who've now just made their first pit stops, are the top 5. Jenny.
Really impressive from Lando Norris and his pit stop team. Bearing in mind, they have the same pit stop crew for both Piastri and Norris. Norris was already revving. As soon as he touched the ground, he was away. But they have just changed their rear jack for a different one. They had a little bit of an issue there, so they switched it over just to be safe.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Verstappen. With clear air out in front now, can give his tyres a little bit of life again, a little bit of fresh air. Here's Piastri.
Everyone has to pit on lap 32, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you for that, Oscar Piastri and Tom Stallard. Everybody else has to pit on lap 32, which will be rapidly approaching, and then they would have all made their second mandatory pit stop to the end, bar the two McLaren drivers, but they'll be on fresher tyres. They'll be able to retake the top 2 positions in this race and then try and eke out that advantage once more, but it could all come undone with any kind of safety car intervention.
Yeah, so lap 32, 4 laps from now, we're going to get that Verstappen and that pit stop for the rest of the field. And as we said earlier on, they're almost going to be forced to go onto the hard tyre. The soft tyre which simply wouldn't get to the end of the race. So not only are they going to have fresher tyres, McLaren at the end. So that was Oscar's radio, just saying that he can go as far as lap 49, they're saying, before their next pit stop. And that just highlights my point. They can go that deep into the race before making their final stop, which means they can put a soft tyre on to go to the end. It's going to be faster compared to Verstappen, who'll be on a slower tyre and a much more worn tyre by that point in the Grand Prix. Yes, they'll have to overtake him, but they're giving him the very best shot and the best tools available to do that.
Sound of the Australian Oscar Piastri you can hear, looking for his 8th win of the season. Come the checkered flag at the end of lap 57 here in Qatar. The man who has gone 6 races in a row without a podium. Last stood on one at the Italian Grand Prix. The last win was back at the Dutch Grand Prix 8 races ago. Prix that disastrous Azerbaijan Grand Prix in the summer. He'd been on the podium in 14 out of the 15 races. And then, well, a rotten run of form for the Australian, who has refound his mojo in Lusail. But is it too little too late? But he's doing all he can right now. If he finishes ahead of Lando Norris, which he is on course to do, the championship will go to Abu Dhabi next week.
And so because we've got these two different strategies, McLaren essentially versus the rest, we've got the two McLarens just having made that later stop on lap 25, now being slightly held up. Oscar Piastri, the first of them, being held up by the Mercedes of Kimi Antonelli, who's a slower car. It's very difficult to overtake round here. Oscar's now in the dirty air of that Mercedes and struggling to make inroads, but he knows he's only got to do this for 3 laps. The question's going to be, how costly is 3 laps at this slower pace? With Verstappen out front able to maximise his own pace in clear air, how costly is that going to be once all the remaining pit stops shake out and we have the final run to the flag?
Last lap around for the two McLarens. Piastri did a 1:25.2. Norris actually a couple of tenths quicker, 1:25.0. Piastri is 17.7 seconds back from Max Verstappen, the leader of this Grand Prix, as it currently stands. Under green flag conditions, when you come in for a pit stop, you lose about 26 seconds. You half that if you come in under a safety car or a virtual safety car. So everybody, including the pit wall, will be keeping an eye on that gap as we tick towards that crucial lap number 32 for the remainder of the field to come in for their second pit stop, whilst the two McLarens will stay out.
And the reason that Norris is just starting to close on his teammate Piastri is because Piastri is struggling now behind the Mercedes. You can see visibly he's fighting the steering wheel through long duration corners. The dirty air coming off the back of the Mercedes really starting to affect the downforce levels of that McLaren. But here he comes up beneath the rear wing of the Mercedes, and he's going to have a lunge, and he does it past Antonelli into turn 1.
Lovely move from Piastri with the aid of DRS. Antonelli doesn't fight that one too hard, and by the time he gets to the exit of turn number 2, Piastri is up into third and has the fastest lap of this race so far. Norris will be hoping to make a quick run of things too when it comes to getting up to the back of the Mercedes, which he should be on by the end of this lap. Lap 30 of 57, Verstappen leads, 16.2 seconds the gap to him and Carlos Sainz. Then comes Kimi Antonelli. Piastri and Norris waiting a long time before their first pit stops, pitting from first and second, feed out in 4th and 5th. Alonso is in 6th. Then comes Hadjar, Russell, Leclerc and Behrman, the top 10. They are your point scorers.
Check every lap shot, line in top 10, and let's see. Comme ça, he's out.
That's Charles Leclerc there wanting his team to check the track limits violations from George Russell going in to turn 10. Russell the car ahead of him. Leclerc not happy with the way the British driver is racing so far.
And in that DRS train I was telling you about, Fernando Alonso at the head of it is doing exactly what I predicted. He's now 2.4 seconds ahead of Isaac Hadjar, so he's pulled that gap, having protected his tyres, so he should have a cushion to stop and stay at the head of that train for the rest of the race.
And the pit lane's about to get very busy at the end of this lap, as all of the field, bar the two McLarens, have to peel in for their mandatory stop.
Verstappen, Sainz, Piastri, the top 3, Antonelli, Norris, the top 5. Then comes Alonso, very much running and ruling his own race right now in 6th. Hadjar is 7th, ahead of Russell, Leclerc and Behrman. They are your current point scorers. That's the top 10. Then comes Lawson, Tsunoda, Albon, Lewis Hamilton, stuck down in 14th, not able to make any improvements. Colapinto is 16th behind Bortoletto. Then comes Ocon in 17th. Gasly, who was involved in that drama with Nico Hülkenberg at the early part of this race, had to pit after damage, has fallen down to 19th, only ahead of Lance Stroll, who got given a penalty, and Nico Hülkenberg in the Sauber is out of this race after damage sustained in that battle with Gasly.
So this could be interesting. We saw how well Oscar Piastri was able to dispatch the Mercedes of Antonelli. We've now got the same situation arising with Lando Norris. He's now caught up to the back of the Mercedes. He's got to do the same quite quickly. He's got to be decisive. He's got to get past him. What he doesn't want is that big gap opening up between the two McLarens. It not only costs him, of course, compared to his teammate, but opens up an opportunity for Verstappen.
Well, talk of Max Verstappen, he's just been told to box on the radio, so at the end of this lap he will come into the pits. He's got 17.4 seconds over Carlos Sainz, who is now under all sorts of pressure from Oscar Piastri heading down to turn 1. It would be a late lunge from Piastri, but he thinks better of it. What about teammate Lando Norris? Can he get through on Kimi Antonelli? No, he can't, and that will be a huge strain on Lando Norris. I think he would have liked to have done it there, but he might just have to bide his time when Kimi Antonelli feeds back into the pit lane. Piastri third behind Sainz, Norris fifth behind Antonelli.
And Charles Leclerc's got his way because George Russell just had a lap time deleted for track limit, so they did listen to Charles Leclerc. George was in fact running wide, and indeed it was turn 10.
Max Verstappen being told to push, use the tyres that he has underneath him for all their worth before he makes his way into the pit lane, coming round the last of the triple right-hander through turn 14, kinks left through turn 15. Now that short straight that leads you to the final corner. Max Verstappen managing to eke out a little more from his tyres before he will feed into the pit lane, as we suspect, or will he stay out again? We'll cut to the pit lane, and he does come in, and he's heading straight for Jenny Gao.
Yes, he has to come in. So he wheels his car into his pit box. The number 1 car, they lift him up. It's slightly slow, but they've put the hard compound tyre on. He goes back out onto the grid.
Yeah, it's a 2.5 second stop for Max Verstappen, who has the gap to get in and out nice and cleanly as Kimi Antonelli clears out of the way of Lando Norris. As Antonelli comes into the pit, so does Sainz. So pit lane about to get extremely busy with everybody except the McLaren drivers pitting. In comes Kimi Antonelli for Mercedes, gets rid of those medium tyres, gets out on the hard, crucially just ahead of Fernando Alonso. Has Alonso done enough after holding up the entire rest of the field to get in and out? Lap 33 of 57, and the two McLarens have now shuffled their way back up to the lead of this race. It's Piastri ahead of Norris because it is busy in pit lane with the entire rest of the field having to pitch for their second mandatory pit stop. Max Verstappen, who was leading this race, now filters back out into third. All eyes now for the next stint then on the two McLaren drivers who will have to come in again. How will this race unfold with a championship for Lando Norris on the line tonight in Losail? Okay, lap 33 of 57, then Piastri back into the lead ahead of Norris. Then comes Verstappen, Sainz and Antonelli. So those three were kind of clear and ahead of everybody else who managed to get ahead and build a gap after the safety car. Then we'll see where Fernando Alonso feeds out. I think he's that a mega first stint from the Spaniard has worked for him and kept him in a strong position inside the top 10.
So this is now all going to be about how much of a gap can the two McLarens build over Verstappen. Verstappen at the moment only around about 3.5 seconds back from the McLarens, so not very far as things stand, with McLaren having to make one more stop. Verstappen doesn't. However, Verstappen's got a long way to go. 25 laps on this set of hard tyres that he's just put on the car. The two McLarens will be able to stop much later in this race and put a set of softs on with a run to the flag in which they will almost certainly have to overtake Verstappen's Red Bull, and I think it's going to be close. I think this is a tall order for McLaren to pull a big enough gap and then get back past a racy Red Bull of Max Verstappen in the closing laps.
Max Verstappen could well be on his way to a race victory if it pans out that way.
This is a bit of the race where we need to be quicker than Max.
That's what Lando Norris has just been told by Will Joseph, his engineer. They need to be quicker. I mean, could we be staring at the two McLarens who, for so long at the start of this race, looked like 1 and 2 was nailed on? Could they actually be racing for second and third?
Well, what that radio message did was just highlight exactly what I was saying here. Lando Norris knows they've got to build a very big gap over Verstappen right now. They've got clear air in front of Oscar Piastri. He's allowed to push, and he is doing. They're building a gap, but it's slow. Verstappen just behind in third, and here he is.
Front left looked more robust on Gasly's car, less graining than the medium tyre runners. So it should be more robust. Obviously, fuel load is down. This is now very similar to the sprint race, Max, but you are on a more robust tyre.
And what he's talking about is information they got from Pierre Gasly, who started this race, or ran early in this race, on a hard tyre. So they've got some information on that tyre about how long it's going to last. He's saying it's a robust tyre, you can push, and he needs to do that because he can't let the McLarens get too far away.
Piastri and Norris have 14 and 15 laps respectively to build whatever gap they can over Max Verstappen. At the moment, Piastri leads him by 8 seconds and Norris leads him by 3.4. I think it's highly unlikely they're going to build a gap of 26 seconds to get out ahead. So will they then pit and put the soft tyres on for the final few laps of the race and hope they can pass him using the extra grip, or will he be able to hold them off?
That is the question going into the final stint.
They do have to pit. They have got no choice but to stop and put that soft tyre on, and they will fall behind. So there is going to be a race at the end of this Grand Prix with Verstappen leading it, bar any other disasters, and 2 McLarens chasing him down.
And then a reminder on turn 7 throttle shape. You've gone back to what you were doing before.
I'm trying. I need my help then, because I can't do it.
What he's talking about there is a fine-tuning of the technique of driving the car that they've looked at in the data. Throttle shape. What he's talking about is the shape of the throttle trace on a map, on a sort of data analysis map. So they've looked at something and said, look, Lando, this is how you're going to get the best out of this, how you're going to approach the throttle application. Maybe gentle at first, a bit more progressive later on, or whichever way it is. They've got a map, a shape in mind of what that graph should look like. They're saying Lando has drifted back to something he was doing prior, so not quite the optimum that they figured out is the way to get the best out of this car.
We're just getting a few replays from what was an incredibly busy pit lane. Oliver Behrman being released unsafely, having to jolt on the brakes and then having to be restarted again before rejoining the pit lane. That's cost him massively as he's so frustrated. He bangs the steering wheel in frustration. Behrman was inside the top 10. He's now filtered all the way to 18th, and the team are being investigated for an unsafe release. George Russell was another driver in the Mercedes who had a fairly tight exit, had to go side by side with another car in the fast lane. That's what you get when about 17 cars all feed into the pit lane at the exact same time. It's lap 36 of 57 then. Oscar Piastri leads Lando Norris by 5 seconds.
Either way up, what the best idea is in terms of trying to get a safety car or just beating him on pace.
So Oscar, let's go to target -1. Best pace to target -1.
Best pace to target -1. So target being their initial ideal pit stop lap, which we were told was lap 49, -1.
It's not very often we can really easily decipher the sort of strategy messages, but we can today, can't we? We know what the target lap is because there's a 25 lap limit. They stopped on lap 25. They could go as long as lap 50. They're going to be lap 49 and 50. Here's Norris.
Check the car. Pretty damaged. I went off.
Lando Norris asking for McLaren to check his car. Could be damaged. He says he went off and he's 6.2 seconds behind Piastri now.
It might not be as simple as that for McLaren because they've got obviously strategy flexibility. They're going to be working out what is the optimum run life for the soft tyre. How many laps is that exactly? Is it 9, 7, 10, 12? We don't know. That's what they're talking about. That what target lap will be whatever that lap is, which might not necessarily be the 24, 25 lap limit that they're on.
Yeah, true. So -1 from whatever they decide is their target is what they're looking at, which means they think they can go 1 lap longer than whatever they initially thought on that soft tyre to the end. But I think, I'm with Andrew, I think this is going to be a real tall order for McLaren now. I think the right play was the way that Verstappen and the rest of the field went, and at the moment at least, and bear in mind lots can still change, but at the moment at least it's looking like they've made the right call.
So Lando, we're seeing very hot car temperatures, 130 in the high speed, so we need to give up a little bit in high speed to help in the low speed.
Lando Norris then being told to just give up a little bit when it comes to keeping his tyres in their ideal temperature window. If he has had an off, we haven't seen it because he's lost a second, and on cue I think we are about to see it. This is the sound of Lando Norris coming through turn number 14. Does he run wide? Oh, and nearly has a massive moment. Runs wide on the exit. just touches a bit of the gravel. That unsettles the car, and it's nearly a tank slapper heading for the wall, but a quick flip from both of his hands to maintain a straight line, and Norris just about holds on to it, but that could have been calamitous.
Yeah, that was nearly race ending, and I think more importantly, the bigger picture, he's struggling with that car on this set of tyres. Verstappen now very close, less than 2 seconds behind the McLaren. Max Verstappen can smell blood here. He still wants to win this race. He knows he has to finish ahead of at least Lando Norris, and it's looking highly likely at the moment he's got a car capable of doing that.
What's slightly odd about McLaren's decision, yes, it gave them flexibility, but it's going to sacrifice track position around a track where overtaking is almost impossible. So it's kind of a strange decision. Of course, there's thinking of what happens if the safety cars later in the race and blah, blah, blah. But everyone else is locked into the same strategy. Why not, if you're leading the race, why not be locked into the same strategy as everybody else? Because they can't beat you.
Lap 39 of 57, it is Oscar Piastri who leads Lando Norris after that little moment, which cost him about a second. Is now just over 2 seconds clear of Max Verstappen in third. And Max Verstappen, he doesn't have to pit again, but he won't want to stay too long within that 2 second gap, because then you really get the dirty air and the tyres start to heat up more than you would like. You want to kind of be sort of plus 4 seconds behind if you really want to manage your pace on this one. But lap 39 of 57, Piastri leads Lando Norris, who just had a almost almighty crash, managed to save it, but lost time and is struggling for pace out there, with both McLarens still to do a pit stop. Max Verstappen is lurking and is very much in contention for the win tonight in Qatar. Behind the top three, Sainz is holding on to fourth ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Alonso is back in sixth, to everybody else's dismay. They are right behind Fernando Alonso again. Hadjar is seventh, then comes Russell, Leclerc. Stroll has actually worked his way up into the top 10. They are your point scorers. Then comes Lawson, Tsunoda, Albon. Hamilton is 14th ahead of Bortoletto. Colapinto is 16th. Ocon, Behrman, Gasly are the top of the only 19 drivers. Hulkenberg's out of this race. Bortoletto, actually, when he came into for his second stop, switched onto the soft tyre, so I imagine a fair few will just be monitoring how that performance runs for the Brazilian in the Sauber.
Yeah, and Max Verstappen getting ever closer to the back of Lando Norris. Now he's a racer, we know he's aggressive when he wants to be, but he can also on this occasion afford to be a little bit more patient, because we know that Lando Norris has got a maximum of another 10 laps on this tyre before he absolutely has to stop and make his final pit stop. So does Max Verstappen close up behind him? Does he bide his time, knowing that when the McLaren pits he will take over the lead of the race? Or does the Max Verstappen we know and love come through, and does he chase down Lando Norris, knowing that Lando can't take risks, and does he put a move on him into turn one?
Message from race control. It's turning into a nightmare Qatar Grand Prix for Haas. Ollie Behrman has been given a 10-second stop and go penalty for an unsafe release. Haas, who were staring at a point at one stage on lap 40 of 57, find both of their drivers 17th and 18th, with only Pierre Gasly behind them.
So out front, Piastri got a 7.5 second lead now to Norris. He's sitting quite comfortably in terms of he's got good pace, he's out in control, he's in clear air, he can manage the pace of this race. The downside, the thing that hasn't worked out for them at the moment, is they have to stop again, with Verstappen and the rest of the field not having to do so. You heard the radio call from Piastri to his race engineer. What do we do? What options have we got here? Do we keep our fingers crossed and hope for a safety car?
Missed your message, exit pen.
I think the only way of winning the race is if we try and box now and chase him out.
So Oscar Piastri suggesting if we try and box now and chase him down, being Max Verstappen.
Well, the thinking is that they are going to come out a long way behind Verstappen. They haven't managed to build a lead big enough to create a pit stop gap. They haven't even managed to build a big enough gap to bring them out close to Verstappen. They're going to be some way back. So if he stops now, at least it gives him laps on a fresh set of tyres to try and close that gap back up again.
Piastri's just had his own moment, hasn't he, through the same corner. But I don't agree with Oscar Piastri. I'm not driving the car. What do I know? In a way, you might might say if you're listening in the audience, but we've seen that overtaking around this Losail circuit is almost impossible. So I don't see how, if he stops now with 16 laps to go, even if he does catch Max Verstappen again on a set of hard tyres, they're going to be 15 laps old by the time he catches them. I don't see how he'll have the grip advantage to get past.
But he's got to stop. If he stops in 10 laps time, he's going to be a long way back with only a handful of laps left to go.
Right, but then he's got much fresher soft tyres compared to much older hard tyres.
I mean, that's the conundrum that they're in right now. So do they opt for the pace advantage of a soft like we talked about? If they stop now, they could get away with a soft right now as well, but it does mean that by the end of that stint, that soft is going to be pretty heavily worn as well. So they're in that little bit of no man's land where the strategy just hasn't quite worked out for them, and they're clutching at straws on what to do.
Pace would need to be sub 124. Would you be able to do that?
Well, I don't see a better option at the moment.
That's what Oscar Piastri believes. He wants to box now in order to win the race. That's what he believes. But I tell you what, the other McLaren is coming under huge pressure. Max Verstappen has gained half a second on him in the last lap. Lando Norris is not happy out there right now. Verstappen is almost within DRS range and closed in massively on his title rival on lap 42 as they carve their way through the flicks in the middle sector, left, then right, then left again. Max Verstappen within a second of Lando Norris now. Has Norris got a problem? Is he struggling out there, or is he managing his tyres? It's close for comfort for Lando Norris, who sits 7.8 seconds behind Oscar Piastri. Let's hear from him.
Let's do it this lap. Box.
So Piastri wants to box, and the team are out in the pit lane, and he's coming in. He slows down to 80 kilometres an hour. Jenny.
Yes, they've got the hard tyres, so the hard tyres go on the McLaren. It was a swift pit stop, but that's a surprise. They're going hard till the end. That's their final pit stop. Norris still needs to come in.
Smoother than the first stop. Norris, though, has got his mirrors absolutely filled with a Red Bull of Max Verstappen. 1.8 seconds for Oscar Piastri in the pits, but it will feel like an eternity for the man who is desperately trying to keep his title bid alive to Abu Dhabi next week.
Okay, Max. This race is Oscar who's pitted early, and he is looking to chase you down now.
That's what Giampiero Lambiase says to Max Verstappen. It is Oscar who is bitted and looking to chase him down now. The gap between Verstappen and Piastri is about 17 and a half seconds. So he's got a lot of work to do, but Lando Norris right now is the man who leads, but is under pressure from Max Verstappen. But Verstappen struggling to find a way through at the moment. His opportunity will be down the start-finish straight. Can Verstappen overtake Lando Norris on the road here, with Norris seemingly struggling out there for grip on his tyres, and had a few moments, nearly big crash for Lando Norris a few laps ago. The same for his teammate. Is McLaren's race unravelling here?
Well, the interesting part of it is they've now got two drivers on effectively different strategies. One of those is going to work out better than the other, so they're going to have a conversation to be had at the end. Has Oscar Piastri just overruled his team, pulled his own strategy move that he's now got to execute with a series of very, very fast laps to chase down Max Verstappen? Has Lando Norris still got enough pace in hand to be able to keep Verstappen at bay and still chase them down with a fewer laps left but a fresher tyre towards the end of this race?
Half a second, the gap between Norris and Verstappen. He was able to close in on him, but not enough before turn one came Oscar Piastri in third.
Now, remember, Tom Stallard, Oscar Piastri's engineer, said the pace would need to be sub 24 to catch Verstappen before the end of the race. His first lap, his fastest lap of the race, anyone's fastest lap of the race, is only a 24.1. which he's not going to get any faster than that because the tyres are going to wear out, you wouldn't have thought, although the fuel does come down. So it's looking very, very marginal. And then he's still got to pass Verstappen.
I think it's a real tall order. I mean, that's a hard tyre which takes a lap or two to get some temperature in. He may get something a bit quicker than that, but I think it's a very tall order for both of these McLarens to do anything about the might of Verstappen and Red Bull, who look like they might have played a blinder here.
Well, right now, Piastri is fastest of anybody through the first sector, and it looks like Norris is about to come in. And Norris was kind of doing Piastri a bit of a favour on these last couple of laps by keeping Verstappen behind. But Lando Norris is told to box. Jenny, he's coming in.
Yes, it's Papaya. McLaren flashes by in front of me. The medium tyres taken off. The hard tyres are on. It's a slightly slow stop. He's back out now, but it's slower than than he would have wanted.
Yeah, it's a hard tyre for Lando Norris. 2.7 seconds. Compare that to 1.8 for Oscar Piastri, as Piastri breezes past down the start-finish straight, and Norris will actually fall behind Carlos Sainz and Kimi Antonelli. So Norris is going to have to do a bit of overtaking here as we run towards the end of this race. Lap 45 of 57. Verstappen leads Oscar Piastri by 15.6 seconds. Piastri now in a hunt for the race victory, but he'll have to do it on the road. Sainz third, Antonelli fourth, and Norris now on a fresh set of hard tyres to the very end from fifth. As Verstappen is told, he's free to push now until the end of the race. Black and white flag for George Russell, track limit, so he gets his final warning. Lap 45 of 57, Oscar Piastri pitted just a few laps ago, and Lando Norris has just come in as well after looking like he had a few problems out there and has fallen down the field slightly. He's got work to do. Verstappen leads this race, and if Piastri wants to win it, he's going to have to overtake him on the road. Right now, the title goes down to the wire next week in Abu Dhabi. Now, I believe we just saw a bit of a moment for Fernando Alonso, did we not, Mark?
It was a big moment. He went a full 360, so a full spin, all on his own. I think ran a little bit wide, didn't see which corner it was at, but he lives to fight another day, but that would have been costly for him, yeah. So not ideal for him. I think when it comes to the two McLarens here, their job is to push like qualifying laps now until the end of this Grand Prix. Now, however many there were, 11 laps to go in this Grand Prix, 11 qualifying laps on a circuit where track limits is absolutely critical, is going to be tough.
I think Norris will struggle to pass Antonelli with the pace we're doing.
That's what Carlos Sainz is saying about Lando Norris, who may well struggle to pass Antonelli. Talk about trying to be in the sub 1 minute 24s. Piastri last lap around, he's done it, a 1:23.3.
He did, but Max Verstappen ahead of him is only 0.2 slower. So he's not going to catch him at that sort of rate, nowhere near.
No, this looks like, unfortunately, it was a gamble. It's always difficult, or very easy rather, to criticise a strategy with hindsight. The gamble would have looked very different had there been a different set of circumstances. Another safety car, virtual safety car, that could have played into McLaren's favour. But as things stand, it's looking like it's Red Bull that made the great call here.
Just getting a look at Lando Norris, who had yet another moment out on track. Kind of got caught up in the curb and nearly lost the rear end of the car. Norris is not happy out there and hasn't been over the course of the last few laps, Mark.
Yeah, he's just been struggling in the second half of this race, actually, in the in the dirty air of his teammate in the initial stint. But then when he put the second set of mediums on, and now with this hard tyre, just not looking happy. He sounded a little bit frustrated as well. He can see that this could have been a big day for him. At the moment, it's looking like not a great day, not even a very good day at all.
Guys, I think we need to go for it. Push flat out to the finish. Try to get this.
That's Carlos Sainz, because he can smell a podium, another podium this year for Williams. Tell that to Carlos Sainz last year. Leave Ferrari, sign for Williams, and get towards the end of the year with 2 podiums under your belt. He's currently occupying third spot ahead of Antonelli, who has slowly got Lando Norris approaching him for fourth place. It's lap 47 of 57. Max Verstappen leads by 14.5 seconds to Oscar Piastri. And Jenny, with Norris down in fifth, let's just hear from Piastri first.
Verstappen last lap 23.8. We would need to be more than a second faster than him.
Well, nice.
Pushing pretty hard, Oscar. Let's see what he does. Just use your pace now. Best pace to the end.
Piastri there with a pretty short response there to that. Needs to find at least a second per lap on Max Verstappen to try and challenge for the victory here. But if it ends like this, Jenny, well, what happens?
Oh my goodness, like Norris would be leading the championship by 10 points on 406 points. Verstappen would move into second place on 396 points. Piastri would take third place in the championship battle, 4 points behind on 392. More importantly, potentially, all 3 title protagonists would have 7 wins under their belt. Woohoo! It doesn't get much more exciting than this.
Oh, I don't want to get to Abu Dhabi and have to decide a championship or count back. That's going to be fun for everybody involved, but it is tantalising right now. Max Verstappen, who at the end of the summer break was over 100 points back from the championship leader. Lando Norris was over 30 points back from the championship leader, and we are currently, if it ends like this, looking at the top 3 drivers in the championship heading into the final, covered by 14 points. It would be incredible.
Yeah, you can't write this sort of stuff. The most interesting part of this race as things stand, because it looks like Verstappen, bar any disasters, should cruise on to victory here. Piastri right behind him is fairly safe in second place, but Lando Norris currently in 5th. How crucial are the points going to be if he can get past Antonelli and possibly Carlos Sainz? If he can drag that car onto a podium, those could be critical points as we move on to Abu Dhabi. If he stays in 5th, as you just heard Jenny say, 10 points the gap, that is far less comfortable.
Lando Norris in 5th is closing on Kimi Antonelli. He was actually a second faster last lap around, but he's still 2.7 seconds adrift. 1.4 seconds adrift of Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli is just over 2.5 seconds adrift of Carlos Sainz, who we've heard is pushing because they can sniff a podium finish for Williams. But the battle is brewing here for 4th and 5th, which Lando Norris, well, the pressure kind of mounts now because he's not in the podium places, and he'll want to pick up every point he can to continue his advantage into Abu Dhabi.
He's going to desperately want to get by, and yet can't take too many risks here, because a 5th place finish is far better than a DNF, and that's what everybody around him will know. Antonelli, I'm sure, will be being told on the radio if it gets as far as Sainz, as Antonelli locks up going into the corner, allowing Lando Norris to get much closer. The Mercedes of Antonelli just struggling a little bit, and Lando will see that, but again, he cannot take too many risks here.
Yeah, that was Kimi Antonelli locking up into the left-hander of turn 6. They're now making their way through the flicks of 8 and 9, left then right, then it gets to the slow bend through the left-hander of 10, which continues to arc to the left-hand side, up into 7th gear for Lando Norris through turn 11, bracing yourself for the high-speed triple right-handers of 12, 13 and turn number 14, where we've seen Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have some spectacular moments there over the course of the Grand Prix. Makes it safely through, getting up to speeds of almost 290 kilometers an hour before you slow for the final corner and you begin it all again onto lap 50 of 57. Norris still chasing Kimi Antonelli, will get the aid of DRS down towards turn 1, but the braking zone comes too soon. Antonelli holds on to 4th.
Yeah, the nature of this circuit is you've got to be very close to the car. You've got to have a real substantial pace advantage to be able to make that lunge into turn 1 count, even with the aid of DRS. Lando's closing, but he's got to be way closer than he was on that final lap around to be able to make something work there. And Antonelli, as I said, will be keeping his car wide. His engineers were on the radio telling him that Lando can't take risks. They can make the car have its elbows out. They can be aggressive in his defence because he knows he's got that little advantage over Lando Norris in this moment.
Battle for the lead, last lap around. Piastri half a second quicker. Still not enough for him to gain enough by the end of this Grand Prix to mount a challenge to Max Verstappen. By the way, 18 cars remain in this race now. Lance Stroll's just come into the pits, but Ollie Behrman has had to retire from this race to compound a pretty bleak evening for the Haas team. Verstappen leads the gap now 12.8 seconds.
I think the key is to open the gap now to Norris, no? As much as possible.
Yes.
Carlos Sainz, I love Carlos Sainz because he's a driver, but he's also an engineer, and it's like he's sitting on the pit wall as well. The key to securing a podium for Williams right now is to push while Lando Norris is stuck behind Kimi Antonelli. Will he be stuck for much longer into turn 1? Yes, he will, and another lap beckons.
Yeah, what a result that would be for Carlos Sainz and the Williams team to drag that car onto the podium. All the focus has been on the title contenders, the top 3 as they lined up on the grid in this race. We haven't really seen too much of Carlos Sainz, but he's driven a wonderful Grand Prix. The team have played a blinder, and he's put him in a position here where he could genuinely get this podium. 6 laps to go, and Lando not just stuck behind Carlos Sainz, stuck behind Kimi Antonelli behind Carlos Sainz.
Oh no! How about this steer? Right hand corners. Check, something fell off, I think.
Is it all falling away for Carlos Sainz? Understeer, something falling off the car. Williams and Carlos Sainz will be worried. The gap's still 2.5 seconds between him and Antonelli. Out in front on lap 51 and 57. Make that 52 as Max Verstappen ticks over for another lap. 12.5 seconds clear of Oscar Piastri. Then comes Sainz. Then comes Antonelli. Norris still behind in 5th. Hadjar is up to 6th. Russell is 7th. Alonso undid all his hard work in the first stint by having a spin, but he's holding on to a point-scoring finish in 8th. Leclerc is 9th, and Lawson has rather quietly worked his way up inside the top 10. Racing Bulls looking at a double points finish. Then comes Tsunoda, Albon. Hamilton is 13th, ahead of Bortoletto. Colapinto 15th. Then comes Ocon, Gasly, and Stroll, the 18 remaining drivers. Behrman has retired from this race, and Hülkenberg crashed out in the early stages after contact coming out of turn 1 with Nico Hülkenberg. With Gasly, I should say.
So potential damage to the floor, Carlos Sainz is being told. This circuit is a real killer for that. You run wide on any curbs, they will always have the potential to damage something on the car. And they're so sensitive, these cars, to every single component. It can make a big difference. But he's got 5 laps to hang on, Carlos Sainz, for a remarkable podium, as it would be, as Kimi Antonelli currently holds off the title leader, Lando Norris, down in 5th place. Remember back in Singapore when Carlos Sainz was deliberately giving DRS to the chasing, or was it George Russell at the time?
Lando Norris
to hold off George Russell, that's right. So this is sort of similar situation here. Kimi Antonelli could do with a helping hand from Carlos Sainz in the form of DRS, because Lando Norris right now has it along that start-finish straight.
For the time being, though, but the last few laps, even with that aid, he's not been able to make improvements. I mean, this looked nailed on to be a 1-2 for McLaren, and now they're staring at a 2-5. With the championship leader losing ground at the crunch point of the season. Norris is stuck behind. What has to be said, a flying Kimi Antonelli, the 19-year-old Italian in his rookie year who stepped into the shoes of Lewis Hamilton after he vacated that team, is doing a sterling job in keeping Lando Norris behind, and has been doing a sterling job, not just throughout this weekend, but in the last few races after having a really tough year. Up and down, a lot of downs for Kimi Antonelli to get his head around. But are we now just starting to see the hype that Toto Wolff has promised Kimi Antonelli will deliver?
Yeah, and the situation that Lando finds himself, as in stuck behind Antonelli's Mercedes, has come about after that pivotal safety car that came out on lap 7 of a Grand Prix, in which we had a 25 lap limit on any set of tyres that anyone was able to use in a 57 lap race. Most of the field came in to make their pit stop under that safety car, leaving them 2 25 lap stints to the checkered flag. That was Verstappen and everybody else, bar the 2 McLarens who went their own way, who didn't make the pit stop, the only ones that have taken that strategy call. They made a much later stop in the race, which lost them track position, and now in a situation where they're desperately trying to fight back, chase down a Red Bull of Max Verstappen, but at the moment the gap looks too big.
I think he's given up the ghost, hasn't he, Oscar Piastri? It's going to be a tough order. Last lap around a 23.7. Compare that to Max Verstappen, a 24.4. He's still trying to put in, but you wonder how much Max Verstappen can actually just manage this race. But I tell you what, Verstappen has another factor to field here, and that is traffic that he is coming up on the Alpine, first of all, of I think that should be Pierre Gasly, which he safely navigates, but then he's got Esteban Ocon, Franco Colapinto and Gabriel Bortoletto, who are all embroiled in a fight. It's not over points, but it's pride for 14th, 15th and 16th. They will be obliged to get out of the way with blue flags being shown at them, but it could well hold up Max Verstappen and just give Oscar Piastri that continued incentive to keep pushing until the very end, because all it takes is one small mistake that could lead to huge consequences, not only in this race but for the championship as well. Max Verstappen currently has 10.9 seconds over Oscar Piastri. Carlos Sainz is sitting in 3rd and looking at what could be a wonderful podium for the Williams team. Antonelli and Norris, the top 5. 3 laps to go here under the lights at the Losail International Circuit for the penultimate race of the Formula One season. Lando Norris could have won the title tonight. As it stands, it will go to the wire in Abu Dhabi, and McLaren look like they have lost a slam dunk 1-2 finish after strategy has played out. Max Verstappen leads this Grand Prix on lap 55 of 57. Oscar Piastri is trying to chase him down but is running out of time in second. Sainz is third, Antonelli fourth, and Lando Norris is stuck down in fifth behind Kimi Antonelli's Mercedes and can't find a way through. Right now, if it ends like this, the title goes to the wire. Norris has a 10-point advantage over Max Verstappen, who moves up into second, with Oscar Piastri down to third, just 4 points behind. 14 points separating the top 3 next week, but there's still a couple of laps to run. Mark Priestley, former McLaren mechanic, and the smallest of mistakes here can lead to the biggest consequences.
Yeah, and it's a circuit that really can bite if you get it wrong. We've seen it happen across the weekend with a number of drivers, and here we go, there's one right now. There's a driver with a puncture.
It's Isaac Hadjar who has got problems. Puncture front left. We saw Pirelli bring in a 25 lap limit on tyres due to this track being so fast, so high energy. The tyres really feel the pain from the curbs, and has Hadjar run out of time there? They've all been playing by the rules, but did they need to limit that even more? We shall see. Hadjar drops out of a great points-paying result. The 21-year-old Parisian rookie who has scored a podium this year and falls by the wayside. Will that affect anybody else? Could it affect our title runners?
Well, it will be a concern for everyone else who made the stop on the same lap 25 of this race. Halfway through, it was lap 32, halfway through that big double stint on the 2 tyres. That's what Hadjar did, and that left front is the tyre that takes the most punishment. That's the tyre that we've seen issues with over the course of the weekend at this track. That's what Pirelli were concerned about. There will now be concern up and down the pit lane. Verstappen out front with a 9.8 second lead. He now needs to start managing that pace and managing that tyre.
Yeah, but that lead has come down by a couple of seconds in the last couple of laps as he's had to navigate a whole behemoth of traffic from lapped runners, but he's just about done it. He's coming through the final corner now as we see Lando Norris has managed to get through on Kimi Antonelli coming through the left-hand kink of turn 11. Crucial for Lando Norris to fight back some extra points heading to Abu Dhabi next week. Was it a mistake from Antonelli? Because Norris looks stuck as he navigates his way through the final corner, and we start the final lap of this race. Isaac Hadjar limps into the pit lane, but Antonelli then has had to fall by the wayside and into fifth. It's the final lap of the Qatar Grand Prix. Verstappen leads Piastri, Norris up to fourth, but the title still goes down to Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, I think it was a mistake from Antonelli. We only caught the end of it on the shots that we saw, but it looked like he ran wide and opened the door to Lando Norris. He didn't need a second invitation, and through he went, and that will be a great help. Could it be a crucial help in this title battle as we roll on to next week in the final round in Abu Dhabi?
8.6 seconds between Verstappen and Piastri. The Australian in the McLaren has run out of time with just 5 corners remaining for Max Verstappen as he carves his way through the triple right-handers of 12, 13 and 14. Huge speeds carried by the Red Bull driver. The flick through the left-hander.
Not sure what happened to Antonelli, Max. Looks like he just pulled over and let Norris through.
Is that a battle for second, and the constructors rearing its head? But with one final corner to go, the Qatar Grand Prix is won by Max Verstappen, who keeps himself in this title fight. The championship will be decided in Abu Dhabi at the season finale next weekend. Oscar Piastri, still in the hunt, comes home for second for McLaren. Carlos Sainz, with a remarkable podium for Williams, holds off his old teammate and friend Lando Norris, who salvages a few extra points in fourth and gives himself a little bit more of a buffer. Antonelli fifth, Russell, Alonso, Leclerc, Lawson and Tsunoda should steal the final point. But Mark, the title goes down to the wire in 2025.
You can never write off Max Verstappen, never write him off. This was a race that he didn't have the pace to beat the McLarens. Here he is.
Anyway, regardless of that, we will fight to the end, mate. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Really well done with the strategy, guys. That was awesome. Thank you very much. We keep staying in it. That's a very lovely race. You take that one. Great job, everyone.
A very lovely race. Great job by Max Verstappen and Red Bull, who win the Qatar Grand Prix. And with that, with Piastri finishing in second, with Lando Norris in fourth, as the fireworks erupt into the night sky here in Qatar, Lando Norris heads to Abu Dhabi next week with a gap of 12 points.
Check flag, Oscar. Checkered flag. Your pace was incredible.
Speechless. Yes. I don't have any words.
Oscar Piastri speechless, doesn't sound happy, does the Australian, who has returned to form but falls to third in the championship. But with 12 points separating Norris and Verstappen, and then 4 points back is Oscar Piastri. This fight is on. The championship will be decided, Steve, in Abu Dhabi next week. Cheers down at Williams for Carlos Sainz, who becomes the first Williams driver to score multiple podium finishes in a season since 2015.
Unbelievable. And that is P3. Amazing. Sorry for my word. Amazing.
You made us proud in Baku, and wow, have you done justice to it today. Well done, Carlos. That is an absolutely incredible drive.
James Vowles, the team principal, incredible drive. His words for Carlos Sainz. Lando Norris in fourth behind him. I wonder, we heard that little radio message from Jean-Pierre Lambiase to Max Verstappen saying it looked like Kimi Antonin just sort of let him pass. I don't think we saw the beginning of that move, but I wonder, Mercedes are embroiled in a fight for second in the constructors with Red Bull. They have a fairly healthy margin over them, but I wonder if that is just something they were thinking about doing there.
I mean, it's quite a cynical way to look at it, isn't it? I don't think that would be a very Mercedes thing to do, but we'll see. We'll keep an open mind. I think in terms of Oscar Piastri, you just heard him on the radio, absolutely no words. This is a race they absolutely should have won. No one was in the same league as McLaren this weekend in terms of their pace. Not really, the gaps were small, but they won every single session. They dominated the entire weekend. They should have had a 1-2, and yet they haven't even won the Grand Prix. You've got to give massive credit to Max Verstappen, of course, and Red Bull. They pulled an absolute blinder. When you do something like McLaren did, something different to everybody else, it's either got to be a genius move or it's going to be a mistake. Today, unfortunately, I think it ended up being a mistake.
And that will be a huge point of contention in the briefing at McLaren after this weekend. But you have to say, a man who didn't put a foot wrong is Max Verstappen as he celebrates with all of his engineers and mechanics at Parc Fermé. He could have been ruled out of title contention this time a week ago, and now he's second in the title, just 12 points behind.
They are the masters of digging something out of nothing, aren't they? They haven't had the fastest car at most points of this year, and yet look at them, they roll into the final round as genuine contenders. There are so many parts to that story, and we'll pick loads of it apart in the Checkered Flag podcast later on, but they have done a wonderful job even when the chips have been down.
Lovely plugging, Mark. It's like you've done this before. That'll be on BBC Sounds, of course. But we're going to take you through to the interviews for the top three, as that's the sound of Carlos Sainz with his entourage and team. He shakes hands with Oscar Piastri, who gives him a smile as well. But then I think a pause for thought for Oscar Piastri about, well, how could this have panned out? Although he has gained on Lando Norris, he has still lost because he's now fallen down to third in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, and he's lost big because it was an opportunity to win. The 25 points were there for the taking, and if you're Oscar Piastri, that hasn't happened for a little while now. That's what he needed. 18 points is great, but it's not 25, and he was so close to doing that this weekend. From his point of view, he's pretty much done everything right, and he's going to feel very, very hard done by this evening.
But Piastri at least ends a 6-race run without a podium finish. Carlos Sainz, as we said, in 3rd, and he rockets up inside the top 10 of the Drivers' Championship as well, just behind his teammate. So it's good work for Williams, who cement 5th place in the Constructors' Championship. Behind them, we had the 2 Mercedes. Alonso salvaged 7th in the end, so good work from Alonso despite the spin. Lawson managed to steal 9th spot. Leclerc got 8th, so 4 points are rewarded to Ferrari for what has been probably their toughest weekend of the year. Yuki Tsunoda stole the final point in 10th in the other Red Bull, the man who looks like he is rapidly coming towards the end of his Formula One career. Albon will not be as happy as the other side of the garage at Williams. He finished just outside the points in 11th. Hamilton in 12th. Bortoletto was 13th ahead of Colapinto. Ocon 15th. Gasly with that drama early doors with Hülkenberg ended up 16th. Stroll with penalties ended up retiring from the race, and Hadjar with that penalty at the end. But let's hear from our top 3. They're speaking with a Formula One legend in the form of Martin Brundle, just down in the Parc Fermé area. Hülkenberg and Behrman also retired from this race. But let's hear from our front runners.
We're just waiting for Max Verstappen to come and finish to celebrate with his team. Max, grab this one here. Well, unbelievable. Congratulations. You've been the reigning world champion since Abu Dhabi 2021, and you still are. You're still in the game for this year's World Championship.
Yeah, this was an incredible race for us. We made the right call there as a team to box under that safety car, and that was smart. And of course, super happy to win here. We stay, of course, in the fight till the end. Incredible.
But your pace was great as well. You could keep the McLarens in sight all the time.
Yeah, I think, of course, it was a little bit offset because of it all. But for us, I think it was a very strong race on a weekend where I think it was a little bit tough. But we still won the race, and that was the most important.
When McLaren didn't pit, did you think, I've got this, I can do this?
Yeah, I was like, that's an interesting move. I knew that then, of course, we had a bit of a gap, but still you need to keep the tires alive, 25 laps as well. The wear is very high around here, but luckily it all worked out.
Thank you. Oscar, P2, you gave it your best. You closed within 8 seconds. You had to make that extra pit stop up, but it wasn't quite enough on the night.
Yeah, clearly we didn't get it right tonight. I drove the best race that I could, as fast as I could, there was nothing left out there. So tried my best, but wasn't to beat tonight, unfortunately.
Do you think the team maybe should have split the strategy, or obviously now in hindsight you'd like to have come in on that safety car?
I think in hindsight it's pretty obvious what we would have done, but I'm sure we'll discuss it as a team.
But once again, you're still very much in the championship hunt.
Yep. It's not all bad, obviously. It's been a really good weekend. The pace has been very strong, but obviously a little bit tough to swallow at the moment.
So, Carlos, I am so happy for you, so happy for your team. What a brilliant drive. Once again, onto the podium for Williams. Congratulations.
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said, Martin.
I said I'm so happy for you. What a great drive.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so happy, so proud of the whole team, of what we've done today, because we came into this weekend thinking it was going to be the most difficult weekend of the year, and suddenly we came out with a podium out of it. We nailed the race pace. I was super quick, much quicker than expected. We nailed the strategy, we nailed the tire management, nailed the start, nailed all the defending and management, and that brought us an unexpected podium, so I cannot be more proud.
And the team delivered you a great pit stop and somehow fed you back into the pit lane.
That's why we got everything right today. We had a tough first half of the season where things didn't come together, but we improved in so many areas during the year, and today there were few opportunities out there to grab, and we grabbed all of them by executing a perfect race. And honestly, I over the moon with this podium, because I absolutely didn't expect it.
Well done again. Max, final word. Can you do this? Can you still take this World Championship?
Well, it's all possible now. And we'll see. I don't really worry about it too much.
Not too long to wait now. Abu Dhabi next weekend.
Martin Brundle with our top 3. Max Max Verstappen winning the Qatar Grand Prix ahead of Oscar Piastri and Carlos Sainz. He's oh so cool, isn't he, Mark Priestley? And he smells a 5th World Championship. We're actually just hearing a look at what happened to Kimi Antonelli, and he did have a moment that just simply, through turn 10, allowed Lando Norris through.
Yeah, he got a big snap halfway through that pushed him very, very wide. And you don't need to open the door very wide to offer a position to Lando. The interesting thing was it was sort of halfway round the corner. It was relatively low speed, but he did have a snap. It pushed him out, and there they go. Lando goes through. I think those points could be critical. They could be really crucial. We don't know how next weekend's going to play out, but every single point matters, and so that would have been at least a massive relief to Lando to get that one final position at the end of the race.
The track invasion begins, and it's been a long weekend here in Qatar. And the title will go to the wire in Abu Dhabi next week. 5 Live Sport will be there. We will be there as well. We'll be joined by the 1996 F1 World Champion Damon Hill, on the brink of maybe crowning another British Formula One World Champion in Lando Norris. But 16 points cover the top 3. Norris, Verstappen and Piastri in the standings, all to play for as we head to the final round of the year. My thanks to the entire team, Jenny on the ground, Andrew, Mark. We're going to be analysing all of what we've just seen. I think there's a fair bit to talk about as well in the Checkered Flag podcast, which will be on BBC Sounds. And make sure you stay glued to the BBC Sport website and the F1 page for all the very latest news that filters out in between now and Abu Dhabi. But the title fight is on. We shall see you in Abu Dhabi. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.